All right, we will get started. Good evening. It is 6:30 on Wednesday, August 12th, and I'm calling the meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board to order. My name is Chris LaValle, and I'm the chair of the board. Tonight, we will be following the posted agenda. Tonight, the meeting is both in person and on Zoom. If Zoom fails at any point in the meeting, we will continue in person. This meeting is being televised live and recorded via Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on YouTube. So first item on the agenda is public input. Public input should be limited to statements from the public relating to any issues within our jurisdiction, but are not the current subject of a pending public hearing before us. Public comment on any public hearings will only be heard during those public hearings. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay. There being none, we will move on. There are no administrative reviews, and our first public hearing of the night is the continued public hearing of 91 Tingsboro Road. Gerald Daly and Tina Daly for the site plan review and special permit for the Sayad overlay for their new two-story commercial building.
Good evening, Attorney Catherine Flood here on behalf of Gerald J. Daly and Tina Daly, trustees of Mattie K. Realty Trust, for site plan approval and COA special permit for property located at 91 Tingsboro Road for the construction of a new two-story commercial building in the rear of the property. The property is in the CB and the COA district overlay. We appeared before the board on July 8th. At the meeting, the board requested the following items be addressed. The snow storage moved away from the fence, add 2 more arborvitaes, and show floor drains on the garage floor. We submitted revised plans showing that all those have been addressed. You also requested that we revise the architectural plans showing the dumpster on the right side of the building. The revised architectural plans have been addressed to match the site plan. You also requested confirmation that a truck can access the dumpster. We submitted an auto turnaround exhibit plan showing the truck gaining access to the dumpster. You also requested that we obtain confirmation from the fire department that they have access. Matt Hammer, the engineer, met with the fire department, and we submitted an auto turnaround plan for the fire truck. We also had the opportunity to address the Department of Public Works comments, and we have no problem including all of the recommended general conditions of approval set forth in the Department of Public Works letter dated August 10th, 2026 into any approvals.
Okay. Evan, do you have anything else to add?
No, I would just remind the board that as this is CO'd, the floodplain special permit is also part of this review.
I was at the conservation meeting last night where that was discussed. Is the engineer here tonight?
He should be here. He appears to be running late,
Okay.
and he was at the meeting last night with the Conservation Commission. I wasn't present.
Because
so.
I had some questions about that floodplain.
Yeah, let me just provide some clarification. And this is based upon some engagement with the state acting director, state NFIP coordinator, which is the floodplain management. So the zoning floodplain bylaw does not regulate what the Conservation Commission, it's not the same standard. So that, as well as any issue associated with the building code. So last night, there was a floor drain mentioned, as well as the design specifications for the flow-through foundation. Those items are also not part of the zoning floodplain.
Okay.
So based upon DPW's review, as well as the standards within the zoning floodplain bylaw, it appears as though it's compliant.
Okay. I just had a question, maybe you could answer this. It wasn't clear from the conservation meeting last night, and not that it matters, but I'm just really curious. Is the basement of the current building being filled in to allow those flood drains to the flow-through foundation drains? Or is it not being filled in?
The existing building that's being
Yeah.
demolished?
No, the existing front building.
Yeah, my understanding is that, I think that's proposed to be demolished and rebuilt.
Oh, it is?
I believe, is that your understanding?
Eventually, yes. Not right now, no.
Okay.
I believe eventually that's
Yeah, that
what
was
they
my
plan to
understanding.
do.
So as part of the rebuild, the new construction, I think what the engineer, Matt Hammer, was describing was that it will be a crawl space, unfinished
Yeah.
flow-through crawl space.
I thought they were just going to fill in the current basement, cut the foundation
Oh,
holes.
no, that was not my understanding.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll take it around the room for questions. Mike, I'll start with you.
I have no particular ones. I think all the i's have been dotted.
Okay. John?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Anita?
I don't have any questions.
Marcy?
I don't have any questions.
Saritha?
Don't have any questions.
Joel?
I don't have any questions.
Deirdre?
I'm good.
Okay. I did have one more question. The truck turnaround for the dumpster emptying, it seems to need 3 spaces to make that turn. So what happens if vehicles are parked in those 3 spaces?
We can modify the plan if necessary for the truck to gain access to the dumpster. Matt did all the calculations, and I'm looking at the auto turn exhibit plan he submitted. And it looks like they can gain access with the existing spots that exist.
So the dumpster truck looks like it needs 3 spaces. It's shown overlapping those 3 spaces nearest the dumpster. The fire truck seems to be okay.
Obviously can't speak for Matt, but this may be a case where during the day, the fleet of vans are off-site.
Okay.
Yeah, but they
But
can,
the point being is that it's not a traditional retail
Yeah,
where the owner of the business can't control all the vehicles on site.
that's true.
so just to let you know, commercial dumpster pickup can happen at any time of day or night, regardless of what it says in the books if it's commercial. So they could come anytime to move them.
The other thing I would ask for is no snow storage signs along that fence area.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for moving that storage to the other side. And then also in the stormwater report, page 23, the diagram still in that stormwater report shows the snow storage along the fence. So if
Okay,
you
we
can
can-
update that.
Modify that.
Yeah.
So page 23 of the stormwater report? Yep.
And then if you can also note in the O&M plan, the snow storage locations.
Okay.
And I would just ask those probably be conditions of the approval. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, at this point, I will entertain a motion for, now this is
This is acceptance for COID.
this is for special permit,
Yeah.
2 special permits. The or is it 1 special permit, Evan?
I believe it's the COID, it's a side yard setback special permit. and then the combined floodplain special permit.
Okay. And then the site plan. All right, so we'll do three votes. We'll do the special permits first.
All
Right,
right. then
you want to close the hearing?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I move we close the hearing.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by John, and we'll need a roll call vote tonight for everything.
Aye.
Mike, John,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Joel.
I think I can vote aye on this, but I didn't mull in, so I won't be voting on the
Oh, yeah.
permits themselves.
So let's go to Saritha then tonight for this.
Aye.
That sounds good.
Deirdre,
Aye.
okay. And Saritha, Joel will be abstaining from these votes. All right, so I'll entertain a special
Okay, the
permit vote.
First motion, special permit concerning the side yard.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Marcy. Mike,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Saritha,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Okay,
Unanimous?
all right. Second motion
Floodplain.
is to approve the special permit relating to floodplain.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by John. Mike,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Saritha,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Unanimous,
And
and
what's our third one here?
the site plan review.
Excuse me. I move to approve the site plan as modified.
With conditions?
With the special
Yeah,
conditions.
with the special conditions as discussed.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by John.
Aye.
Mike, John,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Saritha,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So that is
All right.
unanimous. You are all set?
Thank you
Congrats.
so
Thank you.
much. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 9 Lady Slipper Lane.
We need a continuance here?
Yep, that has asked for continuance until the next meeting, I believe. Second meeting in August. So our next
Right.
meeting.
Move to continue the 9 Lady Sipper Lane hearings until the second meeting in, the second in October, you said?
August.
August, 2nd in August. I'm thinking way too far ahead.
You can jump ahead that far, it's okay.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mike, second by John. Mike?
Do we,
Aye.
do we need an extension?
We have that as
Didn't
well.
we
Yeah, that's part of the, that was part of the letter.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mike?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Marcy?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Deirdre?
Sorry.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Okay,
That is continued.
all right.
All right.
Okay.
We actually cannot do the public hearings yet because we are not at 7 o'clock. So we will skip down to the discussions. Managed growth strategy. Any updates on that?
Yeah.
Quick update. Unfortunately, and very disappointing, we were not successful with our first state grant application. That was the Eco One Stop. I'll mention this as well as noteworthy. DPW submitted 5 separate applications, and they were not successful on any of their applications as well. Collectively, we will be requesting a debrief on those grant applications and discussing the review and rankings. Back to managed growth strategy. We, as you may recall, we applied for a second state grant, which was through the Mass Works program, where we expect to hear back on that one September or October, sometime in that time frame. In the meantime, the managed growth strategy met last month. They're scheduled to meet in September. I'm going to circle back with NIMCOG to just get a feel for the timeline, and then obviously report back to the task force.
Okay.
How does that affect our, you were gonna send out a letter to,
Yeah, so that's what I'm referring to. That letter, that formal letter has not been sent yet.
right,
I'm not sure, I think NIMCOG will say there's no harm in the town and the task force proceeding with that. But the timeliness and the urgency may not be the same.
right, okay. I figured that, I just wanted to
Sure.
confirm.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? All right. The zoning and regulation change tracking document, I'm not going to go through that. That's essentially updating everyone on where all of our changes are sitting. We've got the public hearings for all of our articles, and then the regulation public hearing will start in our August meeting after town meeting votes on our articles. We wanted to do the regulations second for all of the regulations that are tied to our zoning changes, because if the zoning changes don't go through or get adjusted, we'll have to adjust the regulations to also be in alignment. Okay. New business. Any new business? All right. Community Development Director's Report.
Yes, thank you. Quickly, as a follow-up to the board's discussion on the small energy facilities, I have engaged with NIMCOG. They will be dedicating some hours and funds towards assisting the board. It appears as though they will likely appear at your October 28th meeting to do an initial presentation of the new state regulations. And they may be also presenting an initial audit of the zoning bylaw and other town regulations associated with small energy facilities.
Okay.
We did have an internal Aquifer Gap meeting this past Tuesday. We continue to make progress. We've reached a point where staff and the consultant are doing some final wordsmithing. Definitions are becoming more important. Getting closer to asking counsel to review for certain legal aspects. And then obviously circling back with Planning Board, Concom, and Board of Health.
Okay. Anything else?
Do you have an expected time frame for that to circle back to us?
I don't. I would
Let's start
suggest,
now.
I would suggest it would be after town meeting.
Yeah,
So probably sometime November, December.
yeah, okay.
Final item is we are awaiting the AG's approval of the spring town meeting zoning articles, and we expect that any day now.
Okay. All right. Any other updates, Evan?
That's all I have.
All right. So we will go to liaison updates. Mike, anything from you?
Nothing here?
John?
Just wanted to mention that the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments council meeting, it will not take place in August just due to summer schedule, but it'll resume in September.
Okay. Anita?
I have no updates.
Marcy?
Center Village isn't meeting tomorrow, but I get to fill you in also on Board of Health yesterday for Joel. So they had a couple of properties up that, because they had failed Title V septic systems, and looking to, so whether or not they could, one was hoping to do a repair, but it looks like they need to do a complete new install versus tying into the town sewer, because they're both on private roads, and at the cost, one of them had a cost of over $300,000 to tie in. So they've been asked to get a couple other quotes, and the Board of Health is going to take a look at a few other things to see what they could possibly do, because that's, I mean, you're buying a small house for that cost. They also talked about the gap analysis, and that they've had a few meetings, and again, like all the, looking at the wording, everything that, we've sent them, and all the other departments have sent them, and that they will be circling back and having another tri-board meeting with all of us as they start to get a few more of these things under wraps and meeting with the consultant.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I heard through the
What was-
grapevine, Center Village is canceled tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
NIMCOG has nothing for
Got
us
it.
for the Chelmsford Street project, so we had nothing other than that on our agenda. So with NIMCOG not being there,
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
there's no meeting tomorrow.
Marcy, was there anything on the DEP letter regarding Hildreth?
Yes, so they did receive a letter yesterday morning. DEP is supposed to go out to the property at some point in time this week with the Board of Health and do an inspection.
Good, okay, thanks. Yep, I was there for the first hour, but I had to leave, so I leaned over to Marcy and I said, hey, can you give the planning board report and give us the liaison report? So, thank you.
Yep. Anytime, Joel.
All right. Sarita, any updates?
We didn't meet, so no.
Joel, any updates from you?
No, that was it.
Okay. Deirdre, any updates from you?
Well, housing advice, affordable housing met, but I was post-op day one and didn't make that meeting. I was homebound, so maybe Evan can update.
Yeah, quick update. The Housing Advisory Board is hosting a Housing for All Resource Summit and Tabling event at the Senior Center, September 10th from 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. State, regional, and local housing resource organizations will be at this tabling event. It's open to all, no registration. So between now and September 10th, we will begin to do the public outreach. All are invited. To give you some examples, Housing for All covers not just senior, but it's more about aging in place, so ADUs, financing, town financial and programs, Board of Health, the assessing department will be there. Then you have a variety of regional agencies such as Community Teamwork Incorporated, Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership. These are organizations that do technical assistance and financing for home modifications related to aging in place, ADA. Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership operates the first-time homebuyer program and has special relationships with certain financial institutions. So we will be bringing together all of these resources for the residents of Chelmsford.
All right. The Conservation Commission met yesterday, and the only thing of real significance, well, two things, was the 91 Tingsboro Road started their NOI, and talking about the floodplain. And then the other thing was the electricity lines. I forget which company is doing, is it?
It's a National Grid
National Grid.
utility.
That project was before the Conservation Commission a number of times, and they closed that one out They're going to be keeping an eye on it. They'll get weekly and monthly reports from National Grid on how things are progressing and where they are in town, which sites they're working on. So they'll keep an eye on that, because most of that work is in the wetlands. Any other updates from any other? Okay.
I have a quick question for you,
Yeah.
though, about those lines. The lines are owned by the electrical company, but the poles are owned by Verizon?
No, these are the high tension,
The
high
high-
capacity lines. So the towers that they're on are also owned by National Grid.
I was just asking, because when we had a pole snap, and I called up the company to go, and they're like, well, we don't own the pole. So,
Good to know.
All right.
connect to me.
We don't have any meeting minutes to approve. And it's not quite 7 o'clock yet. So at this point, I will call for a recess, probably about 3, 4, 5 minutes until we reach 7 o'clock. And then we'll start the public hearing for the zoning bylaw articles. So now we'll be recessed till 7 o'clock. Seven o'clock, we will be back in session. Okay, we're coming back in session.
Excuse us.
Folks,
Thank
we're
you.
coming back to session. Keeps
Use
reading.
that teacher voice.
So at this point, we will open the public hearing for the purposes of receiving public comment for our 7 or 8 zoning articles that we are proposing for this fall town meeting. We will be taking them in order that they appeared in the ad, which is also the order that they appear on the agenda. And this is the first of at least 2 sessions. I do plan on the second meeting in August also having these be addressed. So we'll at least have 2 meetings. We'll see, depending on how much more we have to go through and when the select board has to do their final acceptance. We may go to 3, one more in September, or we may just end it at 2. I will be limiting folks, because we're doing at least 2 sessions, I'll be limiting folks to 4 minutes for each time up to the podium. I would ask that if someone has already had a chance to speak on an article, that they let others speak first. And then if everyone has had a chance to speak once in the evening, we will allow someone to come up again if needed. We'll also potentially, depending on how late things go, I'm hoping it doesn't go too late, but we may have to cut things off towards the end of the night if it goes too late, and then we'll continue in our next meeting. Okay, so my plan tonight is to run through the slides for each of the proposed articles. We will have some quick board discussion if there are any questions or comments. I will then open it up to the public for public comment, and then we will come back to the board for any discussion, answers, things like that. All right, so the first one is the childcare zoning article. So the changes for this are necessitated by an Attorney General zoning review feedback that happened in a prior review. The Attorney General noted that we do have 2 definitions for family childcare home and family or child daycare facility, and also 2 instances in the use table for each of those. And because those are both protected uses by the Dover Amendment, the recommendation from the Attorney General is to remove them or align with the state information. So we checked with Town Council, and the recommendation is to align with the state definitions and essentially strike them from the use table. So that's essentially what we're doing. This is the state definition for reference. Very similar to what we had, with a little bit more detail. And so our proposal is to delete both definitions and both instances from the use table. So that is our proposed change for that. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. I will open it up to the public for any comment or questions from the board. Or from the public, sorry.
George Zaharoulis. My question is, I see that you've stricken the definitions and you've come up with the state definitions. And in the use table, you've made it acceptable in every single zone. My question, I guess, is if someone's opening a child care facility, does that mean they do not have to come before your board at all?
They do have to come before us for site plan review. But what we can do is very limited. This is exactly the process that happened for the daycare that came in on North Road. And they were a Dover Amendment use.
So I sat on this board when a child care facility came before us, and it was in an existing building on Chelmsford Street. And they came before us, and we had special permits, we had site plan, and I would encourage you to change that use table back to where you have more control of what happens in residential neighborhoods, okay? To have it just a yes, someone's gonna find a building and put it in and not come before you. They won't need to do a site plan. They'll just go in there and do it.
We would love to, but we can't. It's a
Who
protected.
says you can't?
It's a protected use by the state.
But if you
The
have
Dover-
it here and let them come into you with it and then you say, okay, they're protected. But if you
Rules
have some
around-
teeth,
The rules around what we can and can't do is regulated by the state in these cases.
we also have rules too, and we should follow those rules, or at least put something in there. When I came onto the board, one of the things I commented about one time was, boy, everybody comes in looking for a landscaping special permit. I said, maybe we should change landscaping special permit. And then I thought about it. I says, no, let them come before us and ask forgiveness, okay, so we can get a better project. I think having it, yes, throughout every single zone is sending a message that we shouldn't send.
It's
So
actually,
I think that you should
just a
change that.
clarification, we're actually not saying yes in any zone. We're removing it from the use table.
So if it's not in the use table, what teeth do you have? You have no teeth.
Exactly.
Put
It's
it back in the use table. Keep it in use table.
anything we put in our zoning related to Dover uses is overridden by the state regulations.
Let them override it. But have this board come before this board, so the board has some input and some say. Okay? That's all, I don't know if Mike was here for that project, okay? But I think just taking it out is the wrong thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to clarify, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So just back to 150 North Road. If you recall, council required or asked the board to have the proponent, the applicant, submit evidence that they meet the Dover use. So not all childcare facilities automatically meet the Dover exemption. This is specific to childcare facilities and family daycare facilities that do meet the state exemption. And then just the other clarifying point, which I think the chair mentioned, is any new change of use or new establishment would require appearing before the planning board for site plan. While limited in scope, to the speaker's point, it does give the board the ability to ask questions, do peer reviews within reason, and also hold the applicant to compliance within reason.
What is the difference in what triggers that between what it is now and what we would make it?
I'm not
In
sure.
other words, what would trigger a site plan review? I think that's what George is really getting at is, are you still going to have that triggered such that they come before us?
Yes. Yeah, so that triggers within the site plan bylaw.
Okay. Okay.
Any other public wish to speak on this article? Okay. Next one we will move to is the site plan review and special permits. So for this one, let me get to, slides are out of order. So for this one, town council has recommended that we clarify our zoning bylaw for when a site plan and special permit will be considered together and issued as a single permit. Procedures for joint consideration, we have some in the zoning bylaws, some in our regulations. So the recommendation from town council is to clean up the duplication across the regulations and the zoning bylaw. And that's what we're proposing here. So any requirements for when things happen will be in the zoning bylaws. Any discussion or description about how things happen will be in the regulations. So under specific changes, we are looking at mainly taking out all of how it has to happen, discussing when it has to happen in these special permit and site plan reviews. I'm not going to go through all of these, but that is the gist of the plan.
And the regulations don't need to be approved by town meeting.
No, the
Just the
regulations
zoning, okay.
don't have to be approved by town meeting. They still need a public hearing, which we'll do in October. So assuming these changes go through at the town meeting in October,
And we can
we'll
change.
follow up really quick in the next meeting, which is the week after, with the regulation changes that accompany these. And we've already started drafting that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. I will open it up to the public for any questions or comments from the public on this topic. Okay. Oh, George.
George Zaharos, can you cite examples when special permits and site plans will be done together, other than in some of the overlays?
We've had quite a few lately. Tonight, there were special permits and site plan reviews done together for 91 Tingsboro. Actually, most of our projects have site plan and special permits.
But are you taking, is this saying that you're going to take one vote for both, or separate votes for special permits and site plan as the
So the
boards have
votes
done
will be
previously?
separate, but it'll be one decision with the votes listed in the decision. So from a paperwork perspective, before we've done separate decisions for each vote. Now we're combining them into one decision. There'll be separate votes like we did tonight earlier, but it'll be one decision. We've also clarified that both reviews will happen simultaneously in our procedures.
So reviews have always been together,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And we've always had two, site plan and special permits, because each of them have their own conditions.
Correct.
So I don't know if combining them is a wise idea, maybe it is, but I would think, I would defer to the people that help you write it, as well as to town council.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Anyone on Zoom, Evan?
No.
Okay. Next item. Contractor yards. So some recent projects brought before the planning board have made it clear that our current definitions of indoor and outdoor contractor yards need to be updated and fine-tuned along with the use table. We are seeing these being proposed in areas that they may not make sense. And we realized in one of the recent discussions that putting the equipment in an enclosed space would change the definition without changing the impact. So what we did is we took a look at how we might be able to handle this. So what we're proposing is to delete the current definitions and replace them with more specific use-based and impact-based definitions. So the general definition would include contractor and service business use. So this involves the storage, office dispatch, maintenance, and staging of contractor vehicles, equipment, materials used in construction, landscaping, paving, excavation, some other examples, similar trades and service businesses. Then you get into the classifications. We have them classified into 3 categories based upon operational scale and land use impacts. It's based on the size and number of vehicles, the equipment, the outdoor storage, operational characteristics, cumulative impacts, and will not be determined based on whether things are happening indoors or outdoors. In multi-tenant or contractor condo facilities, each tenant space will be evaluated individually for classification. In addition, the multi-tenant or contractor condominium facility will be evaluated as a whole based on the cumulative number of commercial vehicles, equipment, materials, et cetera. The overall facility will be classified based on the higher number of the classification of these 2 items. Either the highest classification assigned to any individual tenant or the classification resulting from the cumulative operation characteristics of the facility as a whole. So depending on what the units are will depend on the classification. So the 3 levels for contractor or service-based business, this is essentially a very lightweight contractor or service business, no outdoor storage except daily staging, no medium or heavy commercial vehicles, which we do define later on, no heavy equipment, no outdoor fueling, fabrication, or processing. The moderate facility will involve moderate operational impacts, storage, 5 to 15 light commercial vehicles, medium commercial vehicles, limited screening outdoor storage, screened material stockpiles, and light equipment or 1 piece of heavy equipment. And then heavy contractor involving heavy commercial vehicles, multiple pieces of heavy equipment, more than 15 commercial vehicles, bulk storage materials, on-site fueling, and other operations producing substantial land use impacts. And then we get into the definitions of commercial vehicles. You can go to the next one. And then we define light, medium, and heavy commercial vehicles based on the gross volume or gross vehicle weight rating. So 14,000 pounds or less is a light. 14,001 to 20,000 pounds is a medium, and then heavy is over 20,000 pounds. For light equipment, we define light, heavy, and we also define a commercial fleet. So the break point here is 10,000 pounds. Less than that is light. More than that is heavy equipment. We give examples, and then we define a commercial fleet. Then we get into the use table. So we delete the old uses from the use table, and then we add in the new uses. And essentially, we are saying that the light use, the contractor service business, the tier 1, is allowed in any of the commercial zones and industrial zones. The moderate is allowed in the industrial and by special permit in the CBLT. And then the heavy contractor facility is only allowed by special permit in the industrial zones. The light, the tier 1 in residential is permitted only as a home occupation. So where there's a home occupation defined, those are allowed. We also talk about parking. Because parking for these uses are very different from commercial and industrial uses, we really defined commercial or the contractor uses differently for parking. And then the footnote on these is that the size of the parking spaces is not based on passenger vehicles, but essentially based on the dimensional standards of the equipment that needs to be parked. Okay. And then we talk about a little bit of description here for the parking basis. Again, because it's not customer-based, customers are not visiting the site. It's really about how many employees there are, how many vehicles and equipment are in the fleet, what is the size and type of the vehicles and equipment, and how that fits. We also talk about the reduction in the number of required spaces. So again, because these are not typical commercial uses where there needs to be customer parking, we do allow for reduction of parking based on the business use. And then the parking spaces size is noted here. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which section it was, but there's, at one point it says something less than 10,000, and then if it's greater than 10,000 pounds, I think that was the equipment, between light and heavy equipment.
Yep.
What if it's equal?
One of those two should include the 10,000 pounds, just so.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And then I think earlier you had 24,001 or some kind of a number and one, and I wonder if you could just say greater than. Yeah. The gross vehicle greater than 14,000, but
And less than
less than or equal to whatever.
20,000.
I don't know. Maybe maybe leave that one alone. One question I had was that what happens if we have somebody who, say they're operating a contractor yard, that they've gotten approval through this bylaw, they're operating a contractor yard and they have, say, one more vehicle than what's allowed, or say like a second heavy vehicle or something like that. And so that's considered a zoning violation. Who is it that decides that? Is that the ZBA? And is that a use question at that point?
So you talking after it comes before us?
Yeah, so that basically when this bylaw is in place, someone's gotten approval through it, but they're not fully complying with it. But say they're very close, and so then, or at least in somebody's judgment, and so I would assume then that they would, the zoning enforcement officer would say, hey, you're in violation of this bylaw, and that they may appeal and say, hey, I don't think it's that much more. And so would that go to the ZBA? And would it be a question of use at that point?
And what about if they're just expanding their business? Are we gonna be micromanaging the purchases of additional equipment as their businesses grow? And who is gonna be micromanaging that?
So,
Well, I mean, I would think that in that case, they would need to come back.
yeah,
Because it's a change to the use. It's an increase in the use. So, I mean, that's covered right now under our current zoning. But Evan, I didn't know if you had I'm just trying to get a feel for like what might happen when you have somebody who's got like one more vehicle and who's making the judgment of, yeah, actually one more vehicle is okay, or no, absolutely one more is not good.
Yeah, so I'll start with the moderate contract facility. If the board approves 15 light commercial vehicles and that's their fleet, and over time they grow beyond 15, that's a problem. Meaning they've they've created a zoning violation of the use and of the planning board permit. What's not clear to me is there does not appear to be a mechanism to approve more than 15 unless the parking reduction is intended to serve that purpose. I don't think that's the intent. So the way I interpret this is the board is proposing some steadfast lines, basically scope and scale of appropriate sized businesses within certain zoning districts. I think at one time, we had discussed or contemplated the notion of special permits for certain provisions. I don't think that's in the final draft proposal here.
Thought we had it in there.
I'm gonna go to the actual text.
I certainly think that would be a cleaner, clearer way to handle it than to have the ZBA trying to figure this one out. And I think, by the way, I think this is an incredibly excellent job. So I'm not criticizing it at all. I'm really more just thinking this is a great thing. And so what might happen, when we actually put it in place, and do we need to build in some safeguards for that?
Yeah, Evan, I'm not seeing it in the text, but I do remember it in one of the drafts.
Yeah, so in this case, if the board is inclined to allow businesses to grow beyond the baseline standards on a case-by-case basis, then the way to handle that is likely with a special permit. And then as part of that consideration, we should probably look at all of the other provisions and determine if it's simply all, then that's all the special permit provision has to say, any and all provisions related to contractor uses. If there are certain provisions that the board does not want to provide flexibility, then we'll have to itemize which ones are applicable to a special permit consideration.
Are there any that the board members don't think should be flexible?
Well, I have a concern about the service business in RB, any residential zoning, that we're allowing permitted only as a home occupation when otherwise authorized, but we're allowing up to 5 vehicles. Contractor service business primarily conducted indoors utilizing 5 or fewer light commercial vehicles. Like, anybody who has 5 vehicles next door to in residential, to me, that should be a no.
as a home business.
Yeah. Home occupation, special permit home occupation allows no more than 2 commercial motor vehicles, including trailers. The motor vehicles, including any associated trailer, shall not exceed a total combined gross vehicle weight of 28,000 pounds.
So, but wait a minute, where does it say that?
That's within the home occupation bylaw. That's section 195(7)B. So it's
Does that need to be cited here, just for clarity?
We could add in the citation. We reference it, but we don't cite the section.
the other way to handle this is don't mix the home occupation with this bylaw.
We could do that.
And just let the home occupation stand on its own.
Yeah, I would put no for this.
If you do that, then line D39, RA, RB, RC, and RM.
The footnote goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just is all N.
You just say, maybe you just change the footnote a little bit, in accordance with 195, 7.
Well, if we separate it, we would take out the footnote altogether. and it would
Right, you
stand
could
on
do
its
that
own.
as well, yeah.
People leaning towards just clear a footnote or separating it out completely?
So this would be no?
This would be no.
Yeah, I
If we
would put
separated,
no.
it would be no.
Yeah, I would
If we
put a no.
clarify the footnote, it would reference the home occupation.
I think that's confusing.
I'd just go with no on that.
Yeah, I would put no.
Okay.
So then back to the special permit waiver consideration. It looks like you're contemplating the number of light commercial vehicles, at least for moderate. And the next question is whether you'd consider the gross vehicle weight rating. Then the next one will be consideration related to light equipment, or the equipment number and weight. So those are all primarily use-related.
So are people okay if we put in provisions for a special permit for increases to the number of light commercial vehicles in the moderate, and then any of the gross vehicle weight, and then equipment number and weight?
Then,
Or do we just say any provisions and make it a little bit easier?
I'm a little concerned about the PB for moderate and CB light in that zone, to be quite honest.
Why?
That's a lot of vehicles in CB light, which is the zone that we put to abut residential.
But it is commercial.
Yeah.
I just think it's a lot that we're allowing there. Like, that to me is a lot for a CB light district. I'm fine with it in IA, but a little bit, yeah, I'm not.
It's really not a lot for a commercial district. There are gonna be some businesses, like Middlesex Street, that we approved last town meeting. Their parking is a lot bigger than 15 vehicles.
So what, how much does a flatbed truck weigh?
Flatbed truck?
Yeah, that,
That would be,
Probably isn't heavy.
Yeah.
or like, mini excavators.
well, the flatbed truck could range, but typically that would be around 19, 20,000.
Is that with, like, if they put like, how are we weighing it? It's just the flatbed truck, but what if they put stuff on it?
Well, gross vehicle weight is what this is.
Yeah. If not,
Remember,
we're
when
not
you open
talking
up
about
your
what we have
vehicle,
it.
it's on the placard, right inside.
Yeah, I guess my issue with this would be the PB on CB light. I'm worried about that, and then if you do a condition for them to come back and grow it, then I'm a little bit even, then,
Well, that's a special permit.
Yeah, but-
It doesn't have to be granted.
once the business is there, then it's like grandfathered, and then over time, like,
Not if we put in special permits for this.
I just think it's harder to say no.
Still gives you the chance to say no.
The waiver provision it's difficult to discuss it in any specificity because you could have a freestanding proposal, you could have a multi-tenant proposal. You may have a proposal that's combined with a non-contractor type use. I think the E24 special permit in CB Light gives the board all all the control you would absolutely need or want. And then if there's a particular, let's assume there's one that's, as Anita's suggesting, is within close proximity to residential, there's nothing preventing the board, as part of granting a special permit, from putting conditions on there that, based upon the proximity, that the board's not inclined to consider further expansions. But it's really difficult to what-if scenario, all these
Like
iterations.
if they are in close proximity and they're already at the high end, like Evan said, we could put a special condition that they are not allowed to expand. But to me, 5 to 15 light commercial vehicles without customer parking is not onerous. Because don't forget, these businesses don't have customer parking, whereas other commercial uses do. So you're likely going to get more parking requirements and larger parking areas for the other commercial uses in CB Light than with this one.
Want to continue going around the board and
Sarita?
I like it.
Okay. Marcy?
I'm okay with it.
Joel?
Yeah, I, what you said.
Deirdre?
I mean, I don't want to be in the position of basically like shoehorning and micromanaging small business owners of what they can, I mean, if we're making an allowed use or a special permit requiring use, I think to have it like rigidly constrained, even if we allow for a subsequent special permit variance, as Anita said, like she has kind of the opposite concern I do. She thinks it's harder to deny a special permit request down the line, but I feel like it's really kind of micromanaging in a way I'm not really comfortable with the business owner
Well,
and their business growth.
Deirdre, keep in mind that we do that now with most uses. If most uses want to expand, they need to come back for site plan reviews, special permits, depending on what the expansion is. We've seen a number
Yeah.
of projects doing that already.
Yeah, but this is like based on the number of pieces of equipment.
But that's what they use, right? So that's their business, is the pieces of equipment. So by them expanding that, that's more use. Like, to me, that's a good way to do for this type of business.
And in these scenarios that we've had contractor yards come before us, one of the big concerns is we approve something and then they want to expand later. And I think if we do the zoning by impact, like we're starting to do more of, this is going to have to be the path that we take, because the impacts as businesses grow do change. And so I do think we need a mechanism to be able to address that. I think our impact ranges need some leeway to allow them some flexibility. But if they go above and beyond, and I think we have provided some flexibility in these ranges. So, John?
I mean, I'm fine as it is. I do think, though, that the whole reason we're trying to define this is we've noticed that there's a big difference between a small contractor's yard and a large one with heavy equipment, especially when you get near residential areas. So, to me, I think I want to see us be able to regulate that better to protect residential areas.
Okay. Mike?
I'm going to basically agree with John.
Okay. All right. So my next question, are folks okay with the special permit for increases in any and all of the provisions in this? To keep it simple? If we see too many of one, we can always adjust it down the road.
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'll make that update. All right. Any other comments or questions from the board before we go to public? Okay. Any folks from the public wish to speak on this topic?
For the record, Doug Hausler. I appreciated Deirdre's comments. I think you're micromanaging things. I know about 28 years ago, which I thought was a very bad decision, the town took away the power of the Board of Appeals to grant use variances or use special permits and vested it solely within pretty much this board or the zoning table. I think this is what you've described tonight with all these different subcategories is exactly the reason why there should be a special permit process so that each case can be analyzed on its own, on a case-by-case basis. And I would have done it through the Zoning Board of Appeals rather than this board, because this board is elected and the Zoning Board of Appeals is appointed. And I would have had those members of the Zoning Board of Appeals use a special permit criteria to determine how many vehicles are correct for this particular use at this particular site on this particular time, and also have the power within to range if there's a need to increase it or there's evidence that comes in that there's a basis to decrease it, allow that board to do what it has to do and have those members have the discretion to do it. This is complete micromanaging. It's handcuffing businesses. You're limiting the areas to do it, and every single person is saying they're doing it out of the concern of the residential abutters. That's very noble, but businesses are in town and pay taxes too. And I'm hearing, and I hear it time and time again when I'm before this board, everything is based on the resident or a resident abutter. Everybody's paying taxes, businesses, industrial, commercial. So we got to stop the prejudice against, in favor of one group against the others. We're dividing and conquering. Residences are always going to win because they're 80% of the population and the weight of votes here. Businesses don't vote themselves. And I think a zoning board, because it's appointed, is not subject to political pressures. And they can use their discretion, and they'll exercise their discretion reasonably. The one who's going to enforce it is the building inspector, and under law, if there's a violation, the determination as to whether the zoning board is given the authority to review that determination, not this board. So respectfully, following up on what Deidre's mentioned, I think it's a noble effort, but I think it's misdirected by having it be within this board. I would urge you not to do it. I'd urge you to give the Zoning Board of Appeals some authority on this and allow it to be on a case-by-case basis so people who come in can raise all their issues, and it can be determined on the weights and the merits at that time. None of us are going to be able to demonstrate or come up with an exact number of applications of how many vehicles with here, what happens if we grow here. We can't predict that. And I'm asking, this creates the flexibility, and it gives discretion to a board that's not elected. That's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
George Zaharoulis. I'd like to understand why on the moderate contractor facility, on you have the planning board special permit on CBLT, and then you have it in the IA districts. Why don't you have it in any of the other commercial districts and not in the CBLT? You know, you say the CBLT is supposed to be near the residential, so I like an explanation on what the thinking was of this board to do it that way. Okay, thank you.
I can speak for myself. In most of the areas that we're looking at in terms of IA, the CBLT has been noted as a transition area for some of these areas. And these are areas that are in larger roadways. And if you look at some of the other commercial areas, they're in areas that aren't necessarily conducive to contractor businesses. Specifically, the neighborhood commercial that is in typically a small neighborhood. And so that was my thinking in terms of looking at it from the CBLT perspective first, seeing how this goes, and then potentially looking at other commercial areas in the future.
Yeah, but you said earlier that you have flexibility here. I don't see the flexibility because you only allow on IA and IS, and CBLT is special permit and nowhere else other than what you talk about on the lighter side. So I don't get it. We have a lot of small businesses in this town that started out with 1 or 2 vehicles, and now they have 5 and 10 and 15, and they've been good partners in our town. So I would think that maybe there's a different way to look at this, maybe at lot sizes in commercial districts and how things fit, and do parking requirements and setbacks and that type of thing. But to limit it by vehicles, I think you're opening up a Pandora's box. I think you're gonna end up putting the onus on the building commissioner to go out there and count vehicles, because someone's gonna call, someone's gonna drive by and see 6 vehicles where there should be 5, and they're gonna call for one reason or another. And I think that onus ends up on the building inspector, and then the small business. You know, we should encourage small business, not discourage small business. Thank you.
How you doing? Chris Ferrera. I think the use table of the vehicles that you have there in the GVWs might be a little bit off. And what I mean by that is, most your landscapers with just a little dump truck right now are running 18,000 GVW trucks. And under CDL is 26,000. So Anita asked about a flatbed earlier. So the under CDL gross vehicle weight of a flatbed is 26,000 GVW. That's the truck and whatever you haul on it. So if say it's a tow truck, they're hauling a car, that has to be included in that 26,000 GVW. What I've been seeing in the industry right now, just on small landscapers, is they're going to trucks that are, like the Ford Super Duties now, are going up to 18,000, 19,000 GVW. And also, small little internationals and Freightliners are going up to this 26,000 GVW. They're not large trucks like heavy-duty trucks. And the problem, I think, with the use table that you have here in the GVWs that you're using is, like some people say, you're handcuffing some people. Like a landscaper might need a little bit more cube footage in the back of his truck to do more lawns during the week. He needs a bigger dump. But he's not a CDL truck, a commercial CDL truck. So he's going up to a 26,000 GVW. Same thing with an electrician. He might need a bucket truck to change lights in the poles, but he's not doing, heavy things. And I seen like I think it was electrical or something like this listed on the list. So the government set the rate at 26,000 GVW, which is under CDL. And I think that really, whether it's your small or medium contractor's yard, should be taken into an account for that. Because some of these trucks don't look that big, but they have that GVW. So I just wanted to kind of help you out with the GVW stuff and that type of stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this one? Okay. I want to bring it back to the board, given the feedback that we've heard. Are there any folks that want to make any adjustments?
One thing, I was looking at the current contractor's yard, both outdoor and indoor. So for CB, it's planning board for outdoor, and then for indoor, it's a yes, but they're not allowed in any other commercial district. So I think that would be the rationale for why CB Light was chosen, because it was CB related. But it's not allowed in any of the other, currently not allowed. So whatever the thinking or the rationale is, I think this is essentially carrying that same rationale forward.
Okay. So,
And then my only other thing is, previously, we had planning board. So IA was PB for outdoor, and yes for indoor. Considering that not all of our, like, we haven't changed all of the resident, any areas in IA, we still have other areas to hit that IA abuts residential. Should we, for moderate, should we be putting PB
I don't think so.
for now and then change it after, when we feel like we've done all the,
I don't think so, because I think that even in those areas, the impacts for the moderate are pretty minimal in most of the IA areas, even the ones abutting residential, because you've got additional setbacks. So I think we're pretty well on our way to addressing most of those problematic IA areas. So I wouldn't be inclined to want to change that. What do other board members think?
I agree with you. I don't think it should be changed.
Anyone else?
I feel like I have a new viewpoint on this, and I think we should think about it some more, and I don't think it's quite ready for prime time.
Why? What would you change?
I'm not sure, but I would, in deference to the points that were raised tonight and kind of, thinking about the idea of having, I conceptually, I liked it when you came up with the concept, Chris, of like thinking about small trucks and medium trucks and large trucks and what do we not want where? And I still think that's a reasonable conceptual framework, but I think when you delve into the details, it's hard. I'm not sure we're accomplishing what we're trying to do, and I do think we're probably opening a can of worms.
So keep in mind that this is one of a few areas where we're starting to get more into zoning based on impacts.
Right.
No, I get that. That's why that's the whole point.
Yeah, and that it's going to be a very different type of zoning that's going to have some impacts. We're going to need to make some tweaks here and there as we learn more, but we can do that. And
I think this is I'm sorry, go ahead.
And by allowing that special permit for any adjustments, allowing that process, I think we'll be able to accommodate any changes that we need to make. And then if we see a pattern developing, we can always make changes down the road.
I think this kind of approach, the details look at times a little bit overwhelming, perhaps, and that it looks like we're micromanaging, but I think it's the right approach. And the reason that I do is because it's being very concrete and specific and objective about what we consider acceptable, what we don't consider acceptable. And I think that, and that these are things that town meeting has backed up or determined and said, yes, we support this. So that helps us a great deal more, I think, in being able to make the kinds of judgments that we do when we have special permit. And we don't have to do what we did in our last contractor yard, which is we have these things that are relatively subjective, and then because they're somewhat objective, that the applicant feels that, well, we think that that applies, and therefore, feels that we're out of bounds in saying that we think there are going to be impacts. This really makes it much more concrete as to how you quantify what we think those impacts could result from these levels. And the town has said that they agree with this, as opposed to it's just the board thinking that. So, I mean, in general, having things simpler and more, simpler is better. But in certain cases like this one, I think because there are specific kinds of quantifiable things that we want to be able to have in place that the town has said they support, then I think that gives us the basis that we would need in order to be able to make the kinds of decisions we want to make.
Any other thoughts?
Yes, someone at the mic.
From the board? Okay.
I'd just like to make one more comment. I think that you basically said you work out the tweaks later. I think going before a town meeting, you should work out the tweaks ahead of time and make sure this is concrete, okay? And then just to come back and do another special permit, it takes time, it takes money, and, they have to hire a lawyer, sometimes they have to get a site plan. It's an expensive proposition for a business to come back and make a decision afterwards. If you can work out the tweaks now and get this done, I think Deidre hit it right in the nose. I think you got some more work to do here, and I would urge you to do that work before this town meeting, or push it off to the spring and get those tweaks done and examine other options that may be a little more friendly to the business. But I understand you're worried about impacts to the town with traffic and whatever else. But I think you got to work out the tweaks. I don't think this is ready. And I was involved in on the board about the trucks in homes in residential neighborhoods. And, we limited it to X amount of trucks or a landscape trailer, because there are some people that work from home. But we limited that, and that was when we did it back 20 years ago. So I would encourage the board to think about this a little bit harder and longer. Thank you.
Chris, just some comments. If the strategy is to go impact-based, basically performance-based zoning, then this is the methodology. And if the board recalls, I think there was a national bylaw, I forget the name of the town. The point being is that towns that are moving towards more of an impact-based are using this type of methodology. I think the newly included special permit waiver provision provides customization and flexibility, not just for new proposals, but for businesses that are evolving. So I think that's kind of the sail face, the safeguard for the unknowns. And the final comment is, if I recall correctly, I think the reason for the rigidity or the prescriptiveness of the standards and the zoning use table was because the board didn't want to continue to have projects proposed by proponents where the board knew that they were not inclined, never mind the abutter comment, the abutter feedback. Assuming that that's the goal, then this clearly articulates the community values, the thresholds for projects that are appropriate. And while you didn't say this, Chris, Turnpike Road came up. It wasn't mentioned, but one side of Turnpike is IA, the other side is residential. The way I would interpret this bylaw for E24 IA, if a project came in and complied with the numbers and the weights, What that would say to a developer, a proponent, is that the board has already determined that up to 15 vehicles not exceeding certain weights is deemed appropriate. That's why you've determined that it's a by right use. So I think the strategy and methodology is taking away a lot of the angst that developers are facing, the board is facing, and the neighborhood is facing, and you're trying to accommodate it, but within a very well-defined and predictable mechanism.
I agree with Evan 100%. And Virginia has her hand raised.
Yeah, Virginia's on Zoom.
Okay. Virginia?
Thank you. Virginia Crocker Timmons, 28 Lovett Lane, Precinct 3 representative. I just wanted to echo what the previous speaker said during public comment. It feels like you guys are just vetting this for the first time tonight, and I think if that's the way you come across at town meeting, for whatever goodness is in this, it's going to fall flat on its face. And so I would also encourage you that if you don't have time to gain alignment as a board before fall town meeting, take the time to do it before spring. Because it just feels like there's so many disparate opinions within the planning board right now. It sounds like it's the first time you're looking at it. And I don't know if that's true. I'm just telling you, from the bench seat here, it doesn't even sound like you've got alignment on the board yet.
Thank you. Okay. So back to the board. So in this case, I heard feedback that we should add the special permit for businesses, remove the home occupation. Are there any other adjustments that people feel is needed for this to be prime time?
I thought that Chris Ferreira raised some good points about GVW. Is that the right term? Yep. So I don't know whether we want to relook at that, the GVW numbers in light of that.
I can take another look. Okay. If anyone on the board does have feedback and input on those numbers, please send it my way. Okay. Anything else that people would like to see changed? Deirdre, what about you?
I mean, I was all in on this, and I have thought about it since we've been working it through it. But, a couple things came up tonight about the, evolution of businesses and how their compliance with within these parameters. And I mean, I think it's a good measure to have an option of a special permit, but I also agree with George that, that's an onerous process for small business owners, to be outgrowing their zoning, like.
So Deirdre,
I mean, I'm not sure what the solution is. I'm not trying to, stop this. I generally, conceptually, I'm in accord with what we're trying to accomplish. And I would prefer to be laying it out, at least maybe on the upper end, what we don't want, and clearly delineating that. That might be an approach to say, the top category, like, definitely I think we should make that codified. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Chris.
I mean, haven't we done that? I mean, isn't that what this is? Doesn't it provide upper limits and stuff?
Well, maybe I didn't express myself clearly. What I'm saying is that the lower categories, I feel like they're potentially onerous on small businesses to know how to function within those, and as they're growing or evolving, to have the burden be on them to come back with a special permit seems,
But, I mean, the alternative is what? That they are allowed to expand as much as they want and potentially impact their neighbors? I mean, that's what I don't understand in an argument that, well, they need the flexibility to grow. It's like, I think this gives them some flexibility to grow. But if they exceed that, they're not, the business owner, the business has abutters, and those abutters have rights as well. And I think our upper limits is saying that once you get beyond this point, you're gonna be impacting your abutter, whether it's commercial or whether it's industrial or whether it's residential. And, if your business is that successful and you know what that upper limit is, then you ought to be smart enough to know that you're gonna need to, seek some relief for that or make a change in your location or something like that. I mean, growth is great and we want businesses to grow, but businesses can't grow unrestricted where they are because it will impact other people. So I don't understand the argument. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about anyone who's made this argument that somehow we are being not in favor of businesses. I mean, everybody needs to have restrictions. Everybody has restrictions on what they can do per the zoning because we want to be able to live together as a community and not overstep our rights and infringe on other people's rights. And this is exactly, I think, what this bylaw is trying to do, I think successfully.
And to add to that point, Joel, all of our zoning in any zone, if you are expanding the use,
Yeah.
there is some process to be able to get that approved. The use is different in this case because the use is based on impacts and vehicles and trucks. But in other cases and in the prior zone, it was based on square footage. So any business or any resident, for that matter, who's looking to expand does have to go through a process. It's just a different way of controlling that expansion. Because what we've seen is in this specific use, the square footage doesn't necessarily provide the entire picture on impact. Whereas in other uses, it probably does. And I think that that's the approach that this board has agreed to take on a number of different topics, including this one. Data centers will be coming up later.
Yeah.
That's the approach that we've agreed to take,
Yeah.
so. Okay. But Deirdre, is there anything specific in this one that you would want changed?
No.
Okay. All right.
Really dark.
Any other questions or comments on this one? All right. We will move on to the next one. PILO. PILO stands for Payment in Lieu of, and this is in our inclusionary bylaw that regulates how many affordable units developers must add to their project. What we have noticed in our bylaw is that the amounts for PILO have been codified in our bylaws. However, also in the bylaw, it says that the PILO amounts may be modified annually to reflect market conditions. So amounts should not be set by the zoning bylaws. We haven't done the changes on an annual basis or looked at it on an annual basis, but that doesn't mean we won't in the future. This is also accompanied by a plan change in our policy in October to not incline payments in lieu, not inclined to not accept payments in lieu of, These changes that we're proposing tonight are short-term changes. The longer-term changes require additional public hearings and working with Choice and Chelmsford Housing Authority to look at the formula for PILO, potentially reset the numbers and amounts. So in preparation for that process down the road, we are proposing to adjust our bylaw text to remove the last sentence of the paragraph in 195, 138D1, where it establishes the initial payments in the table below. Also remove the actual table with the amounts. And then in number 2, on the next slide, reword, annually the planning board may by majority vote modify, instead of these per unit fees, modify the per unit fees. So those are the changes we are proposing to make for this bylaw. And that will set us up for future public hearings and process with the Housing Authority and Choice to set and update the formula and amounts. All right. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, I will open it up for public comment on this topic. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay. There being none, we will move to the next one. Okay, this is related to data center zoning. So given the recent events in Lowell and across the country, the planning board realized that it was time to also take a look at data center in our area, looking at defining what data centers are, looking at the sub-use definitions, and then looking at the table. So the initial general definition is a facility or part of a facility used for the storage, management, processing, and transmission of digital data, which houses computer or network equipment, systems, servers, appliances, and other associated components relating to digital data operations. Associated external infrastructure to support the sustained operations may also be included, such as, but not limited to, generators, fuel storage, cooling systems, on-site utility battery storage substations. Then we look at sub-use definitions. And again, we're taking the approach of impact-based zoning. So we've looked at accessory small data center and defined that as a small data center that is subordinate to and serves only the principal use of the premises, is located entirely within the same building as its principal use it serves. An accessory small data center shall have the total electrical consumption of no more than 1 megawatt, regardless of source, occupy less than 20,000 square feet, and have no external associated infrastructure dedicated solely to the data center. We wanted to define this because there are many businesses across the country, the world, that have small data centers within their confines, office buildings that also have data centers. And so we wanted to make sure that we define that and accounted for it in the use table. Then we get into small data center. Data center, which is a business use that has up to 1 megawatt of total electrical consumption regardless of source, is less than 20,000 square feet, and can have associated external infrastructure limited to generators. Medium data center, a data center, whether principal or accessory use, that has up to 3 megawatts of total electrical consumption regardless of source, and is less than 75,000 square feet. Limits to associated external infrastructure include less than 15,000 gallons of on-site fuel storage. Cooling systems must be closed system and no utility substations. Large data center. Data center, whether a principal or accessory use that has greater than 3 megawatts of total electrical consumption, regardless of source. And then looking at the use table, accessory small data center, we have allowed in commercial and industrial. Small data center, we are proposing by special permit only in industrial. And medium and large data centers not allowed in any zone. We do have notes on here as well that accessory small data centers shall remain accessory to a principal permitted use and shall not be construed as authorizing a principal data center use. So again, we're limiting the approved use to accessory. And then notwithstanding the provisions of the table of dimensional requirements, associated external infrastructure serving a small data center, including but not limited to backup generators, fuel storage tanks, cooling systems, battery storage systems, utility substations, shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from any residential zoning district boundary. So those are the definitions. We have also two other potential changes. And based on town council's recent feedback, it looks like we probably don't need those additional information in the attachments, that the footnotes would suffice in the use. So we'll probably not move forward with those two changes. And then Joel has also included some backup slides. If you go to the first one. This talks about why we started looking at these and this change. The next slide looks at various types of data centers that are in use in various places around the country. Hyperscale facilities, co-location centers, edge and micro data centers. It lists some of the data center backup elements, data center elements like backup generators, cooling and water use, noise controls, things like that. Next slide, issues for zoning, backup generators, cooling, utilities, exterior mechanical equipment, structure, and Joel also noted that the ITE trip generation for this land use is really a fraction of the other land use codes because this is not a traffic generating use. And then we all know what's happening over in our neighbor's area, and so this gives a little bit of information on that data center.
One piece of information that recently came out was, I had trouble finding it, but for Mark Lee, it's 40 megawatts.
Oh, it is?
Yep, it's 40 megawatts.
Okay.
The place going into Tingsboro is going to be 200, I believe. That's a battery storage thing.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, at this point, we'll open it up to public comment. Would anyone from the public wish to comment on this one? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. We'll move to the next topic. 210 Boston Road area rezoning. So a little bit of background on why we are rezoning some areas. This is based on the CBLT zoning. In a recent, or 2023 study by NEMCOG, they identified a number of zoning conflicts in town. There are a number of ways to mitigate the zoning conflicts. One of the ways is to change the underlying map. Another one is to change the use table. There are overlays that can be put in place, creating new zones, or a combination of them. We looked at different conflict areas, used Kate's Corner as a model to create this new CBLT zone. We then also looked at Middlesex Street area, recently applied the CBLT rezoning to that area as well. And the 210 Boston Road is another area that we're looking at. So the CBLT, which is CB Light, is a new zone that we're looking at for a potential solution for at least some zoning conflicts in town related to IA zones. We can either use this as a transition zone between an IA zone and residential areas, or convert the IA zone to CBLT. It lessens the negative impacts to other non-IA zones from IA. And as I mentioned, Kate's Corner was the first. 51 to 57 Middlesex Street area was the second area. We are also considering Riverneck Road and Boston Road. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these were the changes that we used for that we adopted in one of the past town meetings for creating the zone and updating all of the appropriate dimensional requirements, property lines, etc. So what we're proposing is the 210 Boston Road area. It is where Chelmsford Lumber is located. And there's a little peach strip mall in that area as well. The main reason why this is before us is because the owner of that strip mall would like to put in a coffee shop in one of the bays, but in the current CA zone, restaurants are not allowed. So we looked at the CBLT zone as a potential solution for this, because that does allow restaurants, and many of the uses are also very similar to the CA zone. So our proposal is to change all of those CA locations to CBLT. And then, as we're doing in the other zones that we're looking at, cleaning up the partially zoned properties. So if a property is zoned CA and RB, or, yeah, in this case, they're all CA and RB on the edges, we would propose to change them to all CB light or RB, depending on what the zone is. So those are the parcels we're proposing to change. The next slide lists out the zones, the properties, and what they will be changed to. And then again, the combination RBCA properties will be going to RB at the bottom. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Not here.
I would just say that one thing that may seem a little unusual to people is essentially what we're doing is we're intensifying the use from CA to CBALT, where in most cases we're actually trying to reduce it. But in those cases, we're actually reducing it in order to reduce zoning conflict. And I think in this case, this is more, I think the theme here more is economic opportunity, where like Kate's Corner or other places where you have these sort of edge corner kinds of properties that would seem, useful and productive for commercial opportunity. That use of CBLT just provides more opportunities for that without really intensifying the, as far as still making acceptable for transitioning or bordering residential properties, for example. So I think in that sense, even though it's a somewhat different kind of philosophy that we're using here, even though we're using the same zone, I think it's one given essentially our also our desire for managing our growth in a positive way, that I think providing more economic opportunity for businesses and so forth is a productive thing for the town.
Any other comments or questions from the board? All right. We'll open it up to the public for comment or questions on this topic. Okay. So there are anyone on Zoom for this one? Okay. So we'll move on to the next one.
Can we go back for 1 second?
Sure.
Put that screen back up, please.
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
Douglas Hausler, resident off of Brentwood Road, Chelmsford. Of the highlighted areas that are being proposed to be parcels to be changed, other than the one where there was a restaurant seeking to go in, did any other parcel owners that are being affected request this type of change?
No, but a couple of them did come. We did have a neighborhood meeting, just like we did for River Neck. And a couple of them did come forward asking questions, and were very happy with the changes.
And the second question, were they given notice that what you were doing through a
Yes.
certified mail?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check. Thank you.
We notified neighbors for the neighborhood discussion and for this.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, so for River Neck, I will walk through each of the changes that we're proposing, each of the sections. Let me bring up my slides. In the agenda, the BAOD overlay is a separate item on the agenda, but we will take that as part of this discussion as well. It is the last slide in this deck, so we will discuss that at the same time. All right. So the first section is the section of River Neck closest to the center. And you see the cemetery locations at the bottom of the slide. You have RB at the beginning, if you're going from the bottom left of the slide through River Neck that way. You have RB properties. Again, we have a number of properties, RC on the left, that have some IA mixed in. And then we have IA properties. We have one property that's both IA and RB split. We have a number of IA properties towards the top surrounding the public property. And then we have RB and IA as you round the clock. So those we're proposing to change So the way that these are color-coded, all of these are changes that we're proposing. So all of those properties on the left will become completely RC. The three RB properties at the bottom, which also have IA in them, will become all RB. And then all of the IA properties at the top, which are owned by either the water district or the town, will become public. Then we move a little bit further down River Neck. We have Monmouth and McFarland. We have 300 Apollo in the middle. We have the other two Apollo, or the other properties in the Apollo area at the bottom, at the end of Monmouth and McFarland. We have the IA properties that abut the 300 Apollo along River Neck. You have a mixture of RB and IA properties, some along Monmouth, and then to the left of the paper road behind the properties of Monmouth. That is a mix of RB and IA. There's a slight sliver of IA towards the bottom. So these properties are being proposed to change to these. So the green will remain as is without changes. And then all of the other blue color are the proposed changes. So the Apollo Drive properties will change to CBLT. Monmouth and McFarland, we're proposing RB. The residential properties at abutting 300 Apollo, we propose to change to RB. There's a small public sliver towards the left-hand side of the slide that is proposed to be public. And then those properties on the top of River Neck are being proposed to CBLT. Moving down River Neck, on the other side of the connector, we have IA on one side of Canal Street, public on the other. We have a number of IA properties on the upper side of River Neck, RB to the right side of the screen, and then public again at the top of the slide. And we're proposing the following changes. So all of the green remains as is. The properties on the left, we're proposing CBLT. Properties above River Neck, except for the public, will all transition to CBLT. Next to the cemetery on the lower side of River Neck, we are proposing those two residential would change to RB, and then the public conservation area would be public. The next slide moves down Canal Street. And these are the properties we're looking at in the circle, mixture of public and IA. If you go to the next slide, we are proposing most of those change over to public since they are either town-owned or water department-owned. The one IA property would remain IA. And then the last change that we're proposing is on the corner of Riverneck and Marshall. There are 3 properties there that are currently RB. We're proposing to change those to CBLT. The next 2 slides list out the various properties, what they're changing from and to. If there are properties that have a split zone, those are noted as well, and what we're moving them to. And then this slide highlights the change that we're doing related to the BAOD overlay. So right now, all of those IA properties to the left of Route 3 are in the SEAD overlay and the 129 BAOD overlay. What we're proposing to do is to remove those properties when we change them from CBLT or residential, change them and remove them from the BAOD overlay. The next slide lists out the properties that we would remove from the BAOD overlay.
And do you want to kind of summarize what the 129 overlay
there.
actually does and why
Yeah.
we're removing it?
That's what I'm going to do next.
Okay.
So Evan, if you go to the slide before. So in the IA zone, in this area, you have the IA zone, and then there are 2 overlays on top of that zone. There's the SEAD overlay and then the BAOD overlay from the 129 area. If an IA property is under both of those overlays, it allows a property owner to propose projects that are either IA appropriate, BAOD appropriate, or CIOD appropriate. They can choose which overlay they propose the project to be under. With the SEAD overlay, there's a process of applicability. The SEAD overlay was intended to enhance the redevelopment of vacant, obsolete, and underutilized uses. Since its inception, this SEAD overlay was overlaid on top of all commercial properties. And then the BAOD overlay was, when it was installed on all of these IA properties as well. Couple clarifications that all of these properties, including the 300 Apollo property and the properties on the top side of Riverneck, the old
Mercury?
thank you, the old Mercury buildings. Those are all under the BAOD and SEAD overlays. So what that essentially says is that a developer or a property owner can propose a project under the IA zone or either of those overlays. So right now, those property owners could have, anytime that these overlays were installed, could have applied for multifamily housing under the SEAD overlay and the BAOD overlay. The SAOT overlay, as I mentioned, allows the redevelopment of vacant, obsolete, and underutilized uses. We have seen very few large multifamily projects coming before us under these overlays. Most of the time, we've seen medium or small mixed-use projects come before us, combining offices and a few apartments on top, or commercial at the bottom, residential on top. The SAOT overlay allows under 4 units by right. 5 or more require a special permit, and that's after applicability is determined. Non-residential to any more than 8 units conversion require a special permit. 20,000 square feet and above require a special permit. And at a recent town meeting, we strengthened the performance standards regarding impacts to areas, streets, and neighborhoods for the SAOT overlay. The SAOT overlay allows 3 stories max in the commercial areas, whereas IA allowed 4. And then the building coverage in IA allows 60%, whereas the CBLT will allow 45% building coverage. I also want to mention that the CBLT zone is designed as a commercial zone and not an industrial zone. So the impacts we're hoping from the CBLT zone are going to be minimal compared to the impacts of IA projects. So that's what I wanted to mention about those overlays. So what we're doing is we're taking these properties that are IA, SAOD, and BAOD and changing them to CBLT and SAOD. It will not likely change the multifamily path. And in fact, it actually may strengthen our ability to control those multifamilies in that area.
And by removing the 129 overlay, we take away, because currently under the 129 overlay, the height that they can go up to 90 feet or 6 stories. So we're actually, by removing that overlay, are protecting, again, the density of Riverneck and those properties that abut residential homes.
Any other board members have comments, questions?
I just wanted to, I think in your talking about the SAOT overlay and multifamily, I don't know if it was clearly stated that currently in IA, multifamily is not allowed through SAOT, but you did clearly say that it is allowed under BAOT on IA properties.
Correct. Anything else? Okay. At this point, we'll open it up to the public for comment, questions. Again, I will limit to 4 minutes for this hearing. I would ask that if you have spoken once, we're going to allow everyone a chance to speak tonight. So if you have spoken once, please allow others to speak first, and then we'll see how much time we have to get to the second round. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Come up to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Clemens. I'm at 196 Riverneck Road. It is an IA rated building. It's over 10,000 square feet. The tenant's light commercial engineering, light assembly work. We've owned the building for over 30 years. and now we're being told we're being changed to an RB. Why would that be? I
Can
don't
you
understand
Bring
it.
that up on the map, Evan?
We're directly across from the old Mercury buildings. On one side, I have a parking lot, the other side, I have another small business.
I believe this property right here.
Yes, looks like it. I'm hoping it was an error, because that's really a big problem for the value of our building. If it can only be residential, then what do we do with a tenant that's commercial? Doesn't seem correct.
I think that actually is an error.
Good. I was hoping.
I think, because I think it looked like a ranch.
Is that the one?
That's not.
It looks small in the front, but you go around the back and it's big.
Yes.
It's over 10,000 square
Yes.
feet. It's
Okay.
not a house. It hasn't been a house for over 30 years.
That's next
Yeah, it should be-
to, that should be.
It should be CBLT.
That should be CBLT.
Okay. All right.
My apologies for that.
Okay, all right. A little heart attack.
No,
All right, thank you.
We will correct that.
Is that just for the one on the left?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't catch that. I actually am familiar with the business owner, and I knew that business was there, and I should have caught that was, should be CBLT.
And I think it actually was CBLT in one of the
In one of
early
the first-
drafts.
It was one of the slides.
Yeah, I think it
And
got,
when it flipped, I don't think anybody really realized it.
Okay.
Hi,
Yes.
Brian Delaney, 24 McFarland Road. I also own 18 McFarland Road. I grew up in the neighborhood, and I raising small children now there. Been there for 43 years, and IA has been the best neighbor we've had. The afternoons, buildings are quiet. Weekends, it's basically vacant. It's a great place next to the neighborhood. I don't think CB Light is going to be that transition that you think it's going to be. I think it's going to propose more issues, something like you guys were talking earlier about businesses that are smaller, they want to expand, now they're going to have to go back for special permits. I like the idea of leaving it IA, and I like the way that you guys are presenting it with putting the restrictions on IA, especially for the buildings that we don't want there, such as the data centers, the distribution centers. You're kind of putting the restrictions with the vehicles, that kind of thing. I think CB Light is going to cause way more problems than we are intending. But that's just my thought.
Just to clarify, the restrictions for the data centers and the contractor yard that we're proposing,
Yep.
and a number of other uses, are not restricted in IA.
There's special permit for the heavy vehicles.
Yes.
And there's special permit or no for large data centers. There's a small, medium data center. I'm not too concerned with that. I'm concerned with Drum Hill coming into the backyard. I'm concerned with smaller businesses across Riverneck Road from back and forth. So if there's a healthcare or gym going where the Mercury building is, there's nothing stopping Axios from throwing a little coffee shop in. Now we got cars coming down Riverneck Road thinking they're going to be able to come across and access that parking lot, and I think it's going to be a nightmare. We have traffic coming down our road already thinking it's a cut-through, and then they fly back out of there. I think CB Light's going to present a lot more different small businesses that are just going to be daily traffic. They're not going to shut down on the weekends. IA is going to be mostly large businesses, and then we're just going to suffocate any large businesses that are coming into the area and have a bunch of CVB Light smaller businesses. I think the IA is perfectly fine on Apollo. The other side of Riverneck, I'd rather see everything residential with the grandfathered rights of the property owners, but I don't know if you can draw that red line on Riverneck Road or
Okay,
not.
thank you.
Hello, my name is Harshad. I live on 29 Monmouth Street. I had sent an email today afternoon with my thoughts on the rezoning. I do support the goal of taking the existing homes out of the industrial IA zoning. But there does appear to be some inconsistency on how the residential density and zoning is being treated in the proposed zoning plan. Per the proposed plan, my home would become RB from current IA, and 150 Apollo, which is my neighbor, like we share a boundary, it'll become CBLT plus COID. I've previously requested the board to consider RC or CBLT instead of RB from my property. And one of the concerns that was raised about RC has been that it could potentially allow duplexes. But yet my direct neighbor at 150 Apollo, they can move into, they would be moved into CBLT plus COID. And substantial multifamily development could be considered in the future. Even though they will require a special permit, they will have to go through the zoning board approval. It's still a possibility. They can do a multifamily development. So what I'm hearing is the possibility of 2 families on my own parcel, which is today RC conforming, is too much density, but the zoning for my neighbor, it could potentially accommodate dozens or even like hundreds of residential units. And those changes would not stop at the zoning line. If a large multifamily project was developed at 150 Apollo, my family and other homes on Monmouth Street would experience construction, traffic, light, noise, building height, parking, etc. So if the board believes that substantially greater residential density is appropriate right beside my property, then requesting an RC or CBLT, at the minimum an RC, is an extremely, in my opinion, it's an extremely modest and reasonable request. And it is echoed by other members per my conversations with my neighbors on Monmouth Street as well. So if a high density multifamily is not the intended future of 150 Apollo, then I would request the board to put protections into the zoning now by modifying 195-113 by restricting CBLT along with the IA in that bylaw. I do want to reiterate that I support correcting the industrial zoning for our homes. We do, like, having a residential zone or like a CBLT zone would be much better than the zone we have today. Yeah, at the minimum, please consider 29 Monmouth Street and my neighbors who want to move from RB to RC. And please include these comments in the public record. Thank you.
I have a question for the speaker.
Yes, sure.
So I got a little confused. So for the Apollo Drive, your concern there is that they, under IA, they can build a large multifamily, 6 stories high, higher density. So you want us to keep that IA?
So my concern is that today they are IA, and per the bylaw, what's the bylaw number? So 113, that bylaw number. So today they cannot build it because the bylaw
They
prohibits.
absolutely can build it. Absolutely can. They are under the 129 overlay.
So-
As such, they can come in for a special permit and build a high-density multifamily, which is why we're converting that up to 6 stories, 90 feet high. Why we're proposing a CBLT,
Yes,
which
so,
would be less dense than it currently is today. So I just want to make sure you're understanding what the zoning is today and what they can build.
yeah, so per
so-
the bylaw information I have, it says COID multifamily is allowed except in the IA zoning district.
Correct, but this is also, this zoning, on the previous slide, we showed is also covered under the 129 overlay. So that through that overlay, that got approved 10, 12 years ago,
Yeah.
they could come in and build a high-density multifamily,
Mhm.
even more dense, that is allowed under the CBLT and the COID combined. So I just want to make sure what you're requesting is us to leave it IA, and you understand the risk of it being IA and what can go there.
So,
I just want to make sure, like, you understand
Sure,
what
sure.
the zoning is currently and what
Yep.
we're proposing. It's
Yep.
not perfect, it's not, we're eliminating all, you know, multifamily, but I just want you to understand the difference between the two.
right, so you're saying that it would not make any significant difference with
No,
what
I'm
they are
saying that
today?
by going to CBLT and the COID, it's significantly reducing, and taking out the 129 overlay, it's significantly reducing what can be built as a multifamily there.
Okay, so that's positive actually, but it still leaves the possibility of a multifamily coming.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so my request is that because right now I'm doing zone from IA to RB, which is super restrictive, and there's a possibility of a multifamily right next door to me. So I want the middle zoning, RB, which is still a residential zoning.
Listen,
It's-
I
yeah.
totally hear you. If it was up
Yeah.
to me, all of River Neck Road would be RB. I'm here, I totally, no, RB.
He just said he wanted RC.
Oh, you want RC?
I want
would,
RC,
I
yeah.
would love it for all of it to be RB and us to go back 50 years ago before Mercury came in and all of that. But unfortunately, when you have something like what's on Apollo, 300 Apollo, I think it's 300 Apollo, you can't tell them to go RB and to say, forget it. Like, there has to be some sort of middle commercial ground for them.
Right.
That wouldn't be fair to them. And the properties on Mammoth are all single-family homes and recommended to be zoned as such. That's what we're trying to fix, right? What's on the ground today, that's what we want there.
But we do have similar properties raised like zoned RC around Chelmsford in the new zoning plan. So it's not as if we are asking for like a huge change from what our current description of the properties. All we are saying, we're requesting a residential zone, and we are saying it should be more flexible. It should be RC. And
Address that after.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Campbell, Precinct 10, 19 Monmouth Street. So I'm going to be really brief. I don't have my prepared speech actually in front of me, but I feel like there's a lot of confusion going on about this board, the BOD, and the the 129 overlay and the COID. So I'm just going to clear that up right now. So part of this rezoning, we are removing the 129 board overlay on every property. So we currently keep specifying that how it enables multifamily on certain IA parcels, which is true. It does, but that's, which 300 is one of them. But we are removing that. As part of this rezoning package, we are enabling 14 brand-new parcels with high-density multifamily option. And it's actually 64% we are enabling. And because we're moving the board 129 overlay from 300 Apollo by converting it to CBLT, we are re-enabling the multifamily, just to get that right. And then, not to mention, like I said, I don't have my speech, but the state is also pushing for commercial conversion by right, which we're tracking. The other piece I should mention briefly is we have the option to restrict that. Town meeting was told that CBLT was not an apartment option. This was not for high-density multifamily. And it was kind of disguised that the COID, which automatically applies to CBLT, does enable that automatically. Now, we have the option to remove that, which I think we should exercise, which is the 195-113, which I think nobody even looked at until we started looking at this multifamily concern. So my request to the board is to put CBLT right next to IA on that exclusion so we don't have that fear. I mean, I heard the board talk about, doesn't come up that often, so it shouldn't be a big deal about adding that. Thank you.
I would just like to comment that if we're actually thinking of excluding it, it should really be a separate article because that's a change to an existing bylaw. And I don't think wrapping it in amongst all of these changes is a reasonable thing to do.
I also want to clarify something. The commercial conversion by right that the state is pushing is not based on the zone, it's based on the use. We do allow office buildings, which are commercial use, in the IA zone. There are office buildings already in the IA zone in the Riverneck area. So regardless of the zone, whether it's IA or CBLT, that, whatever the state is pushing, would likely apply to those buildings because those are office building use. It doesn't matter what the underlying zoning is. I also want to mention that the categorization of the town meeting discussion is incorrect. We did discuss apartments at the town meeting when CBLT was discussed as part of the overlay. We did not allow apartments by right in CBLT by design, but anywhere that there's an overlay, it is allowed.
Right, so, I mean, I can recheck the town meeting. I mean, I quoted two people that directly asked you, and, you know, I'm fairly confident, but I'll recheck that. The point, what I'm saying is, we know the state is pushing for more housing, and they're going to continue to get more aggressive. We don't have to make it easier for them. This 195-113 was designed to protect us. CBLT was designed to be a light use case of IA and commercial. It was not designed to be high-density multifamily. I personally feel that high-density multifamily is not light. It changes the character of a neighborhood. It's kind of scary to me to think about hundreds of apartments going at 300 Apollo. My calculation of the sewer capacity indicated that with a 300,000 square foot office building, that they could support with their existing capacity 200 apartments. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but they could do that. And under the zoning, you are creating 22 different parcels that have that multifamily pathway. And 14 of them currently are not part of the board, so they do not have a pathway at all.
Okay, Sean, thank you.
Douglas Hausler, 37 Brentwood Road. Evan, would you be kind enough to put up the screen showing the Walsh property and the Kinney property? So with respect to these two properties, I'm representing them as their attorney. They've asked me to speak on their behalf about their opposition to this rezoning. The Walsh properties, there are two parcels combined about 11 acres. On the Kinney property, I believe it's approximately 5 acres. And if I'm looking at that correctly, can you show what the existing is, Evan?
Which two parcels are they?
140 Riverneck?
Is this one there? I can't remember which the other one is.
Bottom left corner is Walsh.
Yep, and the one across.
And you'll see that they're not presently anywhere really close to residential, except for themselves. The Walsh property is their own, it's them. But they're not affecting any neighbors by having IA. What they do with their property, what you're proposing to do to them, is restrict their abilities to develop their properties. And they've owned them for decades. They bought them for these reasons because they were zoned the way they were. People who have lived in that area were aware that this was an IA zone. This is somewhat akin, I call it coming to a nuisance if you want to look at it from a negative perception. You know, if you move next to a golf course, you're going to expect that there are going to be some golf balls flying by. Well, if you move into an IA district, you got to anticipate there's going to be some industrial uses within it. These particular parcels are pretty much segregated. And if anything, if you're going to propose some modification of the zone, I'd ask you to keep at least those parcels IA and not put restrictions on their values. You're decreasing the amount of the height, you're decreasing the amount of what's available. I think it was a floor area ratio or coverage, lot coverage, one or the other. So there are two significant restrictions or impacts, negative impacts on them. So again, these are large parcels of land. They're not abutting they're abutting public lands, or they're abutting actually, in this case, water, there's a brook or wetland. They're not affecting any residential uses. So I'd ask you to consider removing them from your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to comment that this is an argument that's been repeated by others as well, including Mr. Walsh, where they didn't see why, because they're not abutting anybody, that they should not be able to stay IA. And I believe each time, not only at the beginning, when they said it, and even now, the issue is not who they are abutting. The issue is that they have access to a road that goes through a strictly residential area. And the IA can generate traffic which could impact those neighborhoods. That's the very argument that we made in our denial of the contractor yard on 195, I think the number is. And, again, I can understand it'd be hard if you don't have a neighbor and you don't know why you can't stay IA, but the reason is because of the impacts that it can have off-site on a road in which the only access you have is through residential neighborhoods. And access through residential neighborhoods is something that we want to discourage. That is probably the primary motivation for this effort to remove IA from this stretch of River Neck Road. And I don't know how many times we need to say that in order for people to understand. That is our motivation. So you don't have to be next to a residential in order for us to not want you to have IA. And in addition, I think that whether there's actually a restriction of value is speculative. And I think that there are opportunities that are being taken away, but there are also new opportunities that are being provided. And in fact, I believe Kinney's use right now, even though she's IA, I believe that we've already determined that use is actually a commercial use. So, I think that there are benefits to changing to a CBLT. I'd understand the argument if we were zoning it residential, but we're not. We're just shifting the opportunities so that we can reduce the impacts that off-site those properties would not have impacts on the residential areas.
That's a shell game, Joel. And I say it's a shell game because when people bought their homes as residences on these streets that you've discussed, they were fully aware of the area within which they were buying. Their values were reflective in certain ways or affected by what's in that neighborhood. And now you're saying to minimize the impact for the residents overwhelms and takes away the benefits of the IA ownership. That's just not fair. That's a subjective.
Yeah.
This is a give and take public hearing. I'm proposing, you're just out to attack this. I'm stating you can take your perceptions and vote the way you want to vote, but I'm stating for my clients, their rights are being impacted by your subjective viewpoints. That's not appropriate. They bought property understanding that they had rights to use those properties as permitted. And I am not aware of a single resident that came by, and I dare ask any people in this audience tonight, if they called this board and said, we need to change this, or if this is a perception by the board that there are problems perhaps with multifamily or impacts of traffic. In fact, I'd like through the chair, ask the audience.
No.
Well, it's public hearing, I'm going to do it. How many here are
Sir,
asking?
you're out of order.
That's fine. How many here have asked
Please,
this board, asked this board to change?
Direct your comments to the chair.
I did. You don't want to listen? I'm going to do it. It's a public hearing.
You are not allowed to discuss things with this public.
I just did. How many people here tonight?
Sir, you are out of order.
Thank you. How many people here are asking this board
Mr. Hausler,
to change the zoning? How many? How many are residents of
Mr.
River Neck
Hausler.
Road? Who's here along River Neck Road?
Mr.
Anybody?
Hausler, you are out of order.
I'm proving a point because you don't like it, and therefore I'm out of order.
Excuse me. I have had multiple people contact me personally over the last 3 years to change these zones.
Mr. Hausler, I have lived in East Chelmsford at 15 Manning Road for 30 years and at 8 Columbus Ave for 30 years. Okay, and I
Fantastic.
can tell you, I can tell you the names of the neighborhoods, the names of the people who have come to me and asked me
Are they here?
about the Walsh property being rezoned.
Are they here?
I can-
Are they here?
Some of them are.
Then let them come up and speak in
No, because you know
favor
what?
of
The
you.
You
people
are over the
about-
4
so
minutes.
yes.
Exceeded his time.
We would like to have other people come up,
Of course, I
but
exceeded
you're
my
over
time.
your
I've been
4
interrupted.
minutes.
Thank you.
Happy to give you a list. Start with
I
my
would
mother.
also like to comment that other people along River Neck Road have been there for many years before the IA zone was put in place. They did not have a choice. Some people did, yes, but other people did not.
And what's allowed in IA is very different when these people bought the property than what we've seen. I mean, I think a lot of people here spent 18 months fighting the Davis property.
No, sit down, please. Sit down. You've been over your 4 minutes.
Does anybody else wish to talk?
Virginia's on Zoom. She has her hand up.
Virginia.
Thank you. Virginia Timmons, Precinct 3. I just wanted to offer a thought for the board's consideration. So CBLT on its own does not allow multifamily, and the multifamily comes into play, as people have said, with the COID overlay. As you're going forward to continue deconflicting zoning in the town, and also looking forward to the discussion at town meeting, if this is going to be a sticking point, I wonder if, given the years that were put into town meeting approving the COID, if it would be appropriate, as someone else indicated, to have a separate warrant article to give town meeting the opportunity to say whether or not they wanted CB Light to have the same multifamily exclusion that the IA zone did, especially since CB Light is replacing so many IA zones in the previous rezoning and in this proposed one, and I suspect going forward. And I think by doing that, it would one, alleviate these arguments around that one point. You give town meeting an opportunity to say, yes, we want that exclusion, or no, we don't, and it's done. And then that argument, I mean, for all the future deconfliction, it's done. It also gives them an opportunity to weigh into this, because CB Light didn't exist when all of the sweat and blood were put into the COID overlay effort over quite a long time to put that in place. So I just wanted to make a suggestion that perhaps the board might want to consider putting forward that separate warrant article to put this to bed one way or the other and know what town meeting wants. And if there is not enough time to put a warrant article on the existing draft warrant, there is time to say we want to have, town meeting usually runs Monday, Thursday. So there is time to say we want to have a special town meeting on Thursday for this one article. So I just wanted to offer that as a suggestion. I've been hearing and watching and reading the controversy around that, and I am still a fan of CB Light where you have applied it so far, and I think the planning board did a good job with that. I just question whether it might be prudent at this juncture to let town meeting weigh into whether or not they want CB Light to have the same exclusion that IA had for multifamily, especially since CB Light is replacing some IA parcels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Traumuller, 13 McFarland Road. I've been there for 40 years. My backyard, I can see the office buildings on Apollo Drive. I want to reiterate what my neighbor Brian said. We've had no issues with the buildings in the back as it's zoned to IA. And I'm not going to I don't know all the idiosyncrasies of the different zonings, and I don't want to know all the idiosyncrasies. And I also want to say, I know there's a lot of effort for you guys, and I appreciate the effort you're putting into this, so we do appreciate that. I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like. What I don't want retail in my backyard. I don't want multifamily complexes in my backyard. I don't mind the office parks. As Brian said, they're here Monday through Friday, quiet on the weekends. Their deliveries are normal business hours. They're not coming at 3 a.m. in the morning. They're not leaving at midnight. So whatever zoning you have, and I'm in McFarland, the fact that you've given us residential, thank you for that. But that's what I want. And whatever zoning makes that happen, I'll let you folks figure that out. But that's kind of the things that we want in our neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity. Joel, do you want to go first?
I just want to say that, again, I think both with Mr. Delaney and with the most recent speaker, that it's the old adage, of zoning is what you see. That you think that the way it's zoned now is perfectly fine because there's an office building there, and I actually like it when they're not there on the weekends and so forth and so on, which is very reasonable and understandable. But the fact is, the things that are stated that are not wanted, like multifamily and commercial, are allowed today in that zone with the Bayard overlay. I mean, think about it. Just because you see something that you like doesn't mean that it's only what's allowed. There are a lot of things that are currently allowed that if we left it could happen and are just as likely to happen as if it was CBLT and the Sayout overlay. And I think that's something I really want residents to think about. I'm not saying to not have opinions on this matter. What I am saying is to don't use the basis of comparing what is there versus what's being proposed as far as zoning. What you need to compare is what it's zoned for now versus what it could be zoned for. And that's what you need to look at. And so, I don't think I can say anything more than that.
So I also want to point out, in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, the multifamily under the SAOD is more restrictive than what is allowed multifamily in that area now. Right now, multifamilies can go 4 and even 6 stories. In the SAOD overlay with CBLT, it's restricted to 3 stories. The other thing is that 300 Apollo Drive is a Class A office building. That means the rents are the highest, the occupancy is the highest, the real estate is the most valuable as an office building. The likelihood of 300 Apollo changing to anything at this point is unlikely, because that's the only Class A building that I know of, and Evan can correct me if I'm wrong, in Chelmsford. That is a successful office building. They will not tear that down to make residential. We also have unit restrictions in the SAOD overlay. We also have handpicked the least impactful uses for the CBLT zone from the IA and the CB zone. So the uses that are allowed by right and special permit in the CBLT, and the handout is attached to the agenda, I would encourage everyone to take a look at what those uses are. In terms of the SAOD overlay, we could remove it. I don't think, I know I am not in favor of removing it. We have recently tightened up the restrictions and the special permit process and the standards in the SAOD overlay. in the last town meeting, and we did that to increase the protection of the residents. So we need to take a look at how this town, and we're looking at that now with the managed growth strategy. If we want to decrease the burden of taxes on the residents, we also need to allow some commercial development. And the CBLT, along with the SEOD, allows for that balance. I also want to point out that that SEOD overlay has been in place since the beginning over all commercial districts. And we have not seen those massive apartment buildings in recent years. It's not feasible right now. We have sewer moratoriums and restrictions. We have other issues with inclusionary bylaw that they have to abide by and put in affordable units. And it's just not feasible right now to get those large apartment buildings that there is a fear of. So I want to make sure that we're balancing what we're trying to do with the likelihood of change if it stays the way it is.
And I just want to add, for those of you who haven't been watching all the planning board meetings over the last 2 or 3 years, we created the CBLT zone in response to Kate's Corner, Lockheed Martin. For those of you who don't know, Lockheed Martin, that area was zoned IA. And what happened was a contractor yard next to the Lockheed Martin property, which was Agway, was for sale, and a contractor yard wanted to go there. And as you can imagine, that's a very nice area, where Byham School is. The neighbors were up in arm. We had a room full of people, all up in arm here, going against that. And that's why we decided to say, you know what, we really need to look at what abuts residential neighborhoods and find, so people don't have to always come and fight and come to meeting after meeting after meeting and state why they don't want a business there. And we decided to start with that area. And we did Kate's Corner. We worked with Lockheed Martin because everybody said, you know, we like Lockheed Martin. They're a good neighbor. They provide employment. We want them, but we don't want these other things. We don't want a distribution center. We don't want a data center. So we came up with this CB Light zone. And that was 2 years ago. We got that approved at town meeting, and we applied it at Kate's Corner. Then last town meeting, actually, North Chelmsford, the Mills, Middlesex Street, the owners of the Mills came to us and said, hey, we really like your CB Light. Can we have that in our area? Because IA doesn't work for us.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point to emphasize, that here's a property owner with IA, and they saw it to their advantage to go to CBLT. So I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind. That is an established fact as to why that was introduced into that region.
That was last town meeting, and we rezoned, we did similar to what we did for River Neck Road. And now we're doing River Neck Road. And this is really, close to my heart. I've lived in East Chelmsford my entire life. I bought my cemetery plot at St. Joseph's. So I'm really tied into what we do to River Neck Road. And I truly believe putting in CB Light is a good compromise. I mean, like I said earlier, if it was up to me, I would have loved it to be all residential from East Chelmsford all the way to the center of town, but that was 50 years ago, not gonna happen. And I think CB Light is a nice compromise. And I honestly think it protects those of us who live in this area and provides opportunities for those businesses. And I think we can be good partners. And this will help us, and I hope, I wouldn't have run for the planning board. I wouldn't spend every other Wednesday here doing this if we weren't protecting the residents, in particular of East Chelmsford and River Neck Road. Those of you who know me, who sat and at every single one of those Davis meetings, knows how I feel about this area. So while, as Joel said, it's very dangerous to look at what's there now and think, well, I like that neighbor. you have to realize what can go there. And the thing you don't want usually does. So that's why we're taking a proactive look at this whole area, and we're trying to fix it and protect it for not only us, but future generations, and make sure that East Chelmsford is connected to Chelmsford in a cohesive way, that it feels like it's still part of Chelmsford. Because I think a lot of us who live in this area sometimes feel like we're out in our own little island. People think we're Lowell, because you've got to go through all this industrial area. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had the history.
I would ask that if you've already spoken, please let other people speak first.
Hi, I'm Katie Melville. I live at 6 Monmouth Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of a few neighbors in the area who either are here and don't want to speak, or who just don't feel like they need to come because they agree with everything. But I'm here just to talk about my support for the zoning that is happening as someone who is being changed from IA to RB and someone who directly abuts IA property. This is a really important issue for me. And I really like how at the beginning of this, we took a step back to talk about what the real purpose of this whole rezoning is. It's to remove zoning conflicts, to rezone places as closely as possible to what they currently are. And as an added bonus, because of this board, is to protect neighborhoods from large industrial projects. And that's exactly what I think the board is doing, and I am in full support of it. So yeah, the residential neighborhoods, I'm talking mostly about Monmouth and McFarland, because that's, my neighborhood. They were zoned IA, but they will be RB. And that's very fitting, because that's the highest density single family zone that Chelmsford has. So it's very fitting. That's what we are. That one's a no-brainer. I also want to talk about the areas on the screen that are going to be going from IA to CBLT. Mainly it's the old Mercury building where that AV company is, and the Apollo areas. So the Apollo area is like right in my backyard. So this is great for the neighborhoods because it protects us from large industrial projects from popping up next to residential neighborhoods. If we've talked about the Davis companies, we all know what that was like. We don't want another project like that coming in. Something like that isn't allowed in CBLT. It wouldn't never come up. By moving from IA to CBLT, it protects us from living next to that kind of project, a data center, battery storage facility, etc. If this article does not get passed in the fall, that will leave our neighborhoods susceptible to a host of unsavory projects for another 6 months. I don't want to be at risk of living next to a data center when we know those are popping up all across the country. So I think this is really important, and I'm glad this is being done now, and I'm super excited about the earlier articles about regulating the data centers. So thank you also for that. I know there's been talk about trying to remove the multifamily component, and one of the ways I see that being possible would be just doing CB Light without the COID overlay. But I worry about that because so the state of Massachusetts is in a housing crisis, as we know, and they're actively making laws to increase housing and make housing possible on commercial areas and things such as that. So if we leave it just CBLT without a multifamily pathway, the state might come in and require multifamily by right. I mean, that's a speculation, we don't know that, but it's seeming to be moving in that direction. And so I would rather zone it CB Light with the COID overlay, which allows multifamily by special permit, rather than leave no residential pathway and have the state come in and make it by right. By special permit, we have a lot more control over what's there and the density and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's great. I was going to talk about how unlikely multifamily is, but I know that was already talked about with the sewer moratorium and the location of all this, so I'm going to skip over that. And yeah, just, like I said, I'm directly affected by this. My zoning is changing on my house. Directly behind me is changing. And I've asked several planning board members, just personally, if they lived where I lived, is this what they would want? And they've all been like, yes, this is what we want. And so I'm just really happy that we've voted a planning board that's here to protect the neighbors and do what they can to fix these zoning conflicts. And I just appreciate all the work everyone has done. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
just want to say I'm forever grateful for shutting down the Davis Company project. That's not what we're looking for. We don't want the big trucks on River Neck Road. That's the main thing. But we know worst-case scenario in IA. And it looks like from the slides before that you guys were presenting that it put restrictions on a lot of projects like that, a lot of worst-case scenario. I haven't heard anybody talk about the worst-case scenario of CB Light. Mercury, that building, Axios building, could be converted with the CB Light. How is that going to get converted? I really worry that it turns into more of Drum Hill. A lot more small businesses, a lot more activity, a lot more transient. I mean, we grew up in the area, we're an island because of that industrial zone. And that's that feeling. You go back there during the weekends and you feel like you're on an island. You feel like a part of the neighborhood. You get to use the parking lots for the residential activities. That's not going to be the case at CB Light.
But you do realize, like, even now, even though it's IA, like, there could be businesses in there 24/7. Like, there's nothing in our zoning that says you have to only operate between 9 and 5. So,
I agree.
So it's, like, again, I kind of go back to what Joel said. Just because it's operating like that today doesn't mean that's the zoned for that.
Right.
And it can change by different tenant.
Right, I
So-
agree. I agree. I've been there 43 years and it hasn't. So, I mean, that's, I understand. I think that it's a little bit more difficult to have multiple businesses in one location like that in the IA. CB Light, I don't know what you guys have thought of, like, how that would change that whole area, like how many businesses, what's the worst case scenario? But I think it's
It
going
would
to
be
be a
up
lot
to,
easier
to the owners of the property, right? So it's, if you think about
Easier.
it, right, like, you have, you know, the Apollo Drive, right? It's Class A office building, right? It's, I don't think financially feasible for them to say, okay, let's tear this down and build, like, let's,
Well, have you thought
or
have
put
you thought
multiple
about that?
tenants. Like, usually when you have 40,000 square feet on the floor and you have 80,000 for the building, you're looking for that one or two tenant to occupy the whole thing, right? You're not, in changing it.
But you will be if there's more foot traffic across the street on River Neck Road.
Or, but you
if
could
there's a
do it
lot
now
more-
too. Like, they could put
But
in 20 tenants into that space and cut it all up. So
But it would be industrial tenants.
it could be the same. It's still the same building. So, like,
I-
it would be, like, it wouldn't be any, I can't imagine there being any significant difference. That's why we did do that.
It's promoting different types of businesses.
Right, remember, we also worked with Lockheed Martin when we came up with this, specifically to attract that type of business, because we said that's what we want. So CBLT allows what
Yeah, but
is currently there, office
Lockheed
building.
Martin's IA. I mean, we
No,
want.
we changed CBLT. They worked with us.
What was
to
it
create-
before?
It was IA, and
Okay,
they worked
so
with us
they
to
came in.
change to CBLT. They worked with, they're now
This is now allowed
in
in
CBLT,
CBLT. It's a high-tech manufacturing.
and that's allowed.
That's allowed in CBLT.
Okay, but they're not allowed industrial.
They are.
They are.
Okay, so what's wrong with leaving it industrial?
Because there are also a lot of other,
You wouldn't want.
a lot of other uses that are allowed in industrial.
We understand that, and we're thankful that you've been taking the necessary steps to put restrictions on some of the more undesirable businesses that could go into IA.
But those are only some.
Correct.
And there are many others
Correct.
that we don't want to restrict in IA
Correct.
that are completely appropriate for IA, but not IA next to residential.
Okay.
Is a distribution center allowed in IA?
You put the restrictions.
Small,
And but they could have 24/7
Yep.
traffic moving in and out, vehicles in and out in IA.
Yeah, small.
And that could easily go here, but that could be a lot of traffic.
I
of like the
we would be
small.
okay with it, small.
I think we're.
Going out to 129.
I want to talk to, maybe want to talk to some of your neighbors on that one.
Yeah, that's fine. Besides the point, I guess I'm more worried about Drum Hill going into our backyard instead of
That will not
the Mercury
happen.
building.
First of all, it's
that's-
not even, that's not
It's
retail,
the businesses allowed in Drum Hill, the large shopping centers,
are not
are
allowed.
not allowed
Large
in
shopping
this.
centers, the small foot traffic, it's the activity that I guess I'm worried about with CB Light than IA. That's all.
The commercial is allowed now under Bayonne. All of that commercial stuff that you're concerned about is allowed now under Bayonne.
Okay, and those are the two that we were talking about earlier, the overlays?
Those are that's the
Yeah.
overlay.
Now, are you only allowed to remove the overlays because you're turning to CB Light? Why can't you remove them with the IA?
The reason why they were applied to IA is to allow more flexibility for the IA district. I don't think if we were keeping it IA, I don't think we would end up removing those overlays because they were designed to provide more flexibility for IA. The reason why we're removing it is because we're changing it from IA to CVLT.
Right.
So therefore, it doesn't make sense to
Because
keep
you don't need
the BAOD overlay if we're putting CVLT in.
I just want to provide some context here. All of this is likelihoods.
Yep.
No one has a crystal ball.
I agree.
What the board in the town and the neighborhood does know, not a likelihood, it's happened. Outdoor contractor yards and uses that generate heavy truck traffic have already been proposed.
Yep.
The board, the neighborhood, the town had to rally and oppose that.
Yep.
Now the board is making a decision on behalf of the community and the neighborhood saying, we don't want that to happen again. We don't want the neighborhood or the town subjected to uses that nobody wants.
I agree.
So it's a community value proposition.
Okay. I agree with that.
So,
And I would add too, that there's also the issue of litigation.
I was
So
just
with
going
the
to get,
contractor yard, we are currently in litigation because they don't agree with the fact that we felt there was gonna be an impact. So if we leave it in place and we get another one of those uses, in the best case, the planning board's gonna say no, and we're gonna end up in court. Worst case is the planning board is gonna say, I am sick and tired of dealing with this, just gonna let it go.
And that
Even
goes
with the
in-
restrictions that you guys are
Correct,
talking about.
correct.
Even with those restrictions.
correct. So,
And I just want to add too, that leaving IA in the Apollo area, for example, the state already has determined that for battery storage, whatever is zoned IA, the state makes the decision as to whether it's appropriate to put a battery energy storage facility there. So changing it to CBLT will take it off the state's list of suitable places for large battery storage areas. I think that's another significant reason, well, or at least semi-significant reason to not leave it IA.
But they can't do that to CB Light?
Correct.
Correct.
I guess I was just concerned about the types of businesses and the types of foot traffic that go into CB Light.
I understand that. I also think, like, you should look at the handout that we have attached to this agenda of what's allowed in CBL Light versus what's allowed in IA, and really look at, like, what types of businesses. And you may want to go back to the ZP Light meetings we had, where we discussed all of that with the Kate's Quarter neighborhood. And we can get you those dates if you wait around until after the meeting. I'm happy to look up the dates for you to look at those meetings where we kind of really talked about what was in CB Light and what we wanted and what we didn't want.
I'm more concerned about how they're gonna change Apollo. As soon as they switch over to CB Light, Apollo's gonna have some decisions to make.
They likely will not.
They probably.
I hope they don't.
Yeah.
Because,
I guess that's what
He doesn't.
because they would have made those decisions already, because everything in the CBLT is already allowed, or most things are already allowed in the IA with the overlays.
Thank you.
Sean, before we get to you again, are there any other members of the public who wish to speak for the first time?
I know there are still some out in the hallway too, so.
I could be really brief.
If anyone's
Hold on, was someone raising their hand? Was there someone raising their hand?
If you'd like to
Just don't-
speak.
You guys don't want me to speak, is that?
No, no, it's sure people.
We just want to make sure everybody has a turn.
Yeah.
That guy's raising his hand.
Yeah.
Hello, board. Chris Graham, 26 Monmouth Street. I'll keep it brief. First off, I have not read the agenda with the explanations. I apologize if some of my concerns have already been answered. I support rezoning changes that will still give the homeowners flexibility to improve and develop their properties. But I'm concerned, as some of the future of our neighborhood, there's so many zoning acronyms that I have so little time to figure them all out. The overlay is protecting us, or it's not. The CBLT, IA is better than, it's just too much to take in briefly. So again, apologize for not getting myself, up to speed on that. But all I know is I keep having conflicting information from members of our community. One of the more alarming things I hear is about this potential that certain zoning changes may be allowing commercial properties to eventually become large residential developments, as we keep hearing about tonight. This is not something I would support, considering the impact that would pose on traffic, parking, schools, infrastructure to start. Whichever zoning changes that would limit the large-scale residential development is the best option as far as I'm concerned. I personally think that we need to make sure growth is balanced, with the first thought being that of our community. On a personal note, some of the main things my family and I loved about Chelmsford was the character and the small town feel, the green space and community. I feel as the years pass, the green space is vanishing rapidly. The character is changing, and the small town feel has been lost. Allow me to close by saying this. I support any changes that will preserve what is left of the green space and the small town character, while still allowing homeowners to make some improvements to their properties that were allowed when they bought them. Thank you for all your time and the patience with all this. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just, can you do me a favor? My email is on the website. Will you send me an email, and I'm happy to sit down and talk to you
Sure.
and talk you through all the
I'd
acronyms and
appreciate
what's
that.
going on.
And I appreciate everything
If it's
you're
not
doing.
me, I'm sure someone else will, but just email me first.
Sounds good. Thank
And
you.
we'll get together. Thank you.
The gentleman in the gray want to talk. He raised his hand.
Yes.
Is there a gentleman sitting down in the second row who wishes to speak?
Okay. All right. I thought I saw his hand.
Thought your hand went up. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak a first time? Anyone out in the hall that we're missing? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sean?
So, Sean Campbell, Precinct 10, Monmouth Street. So I'm going to be pretty brief, which is, challenging. But so we're we're rezoning 96 properties, 96 of them. We've heard a lot about 300 Apollo. 300 Apollo is 26.5 acres. It abuts about probably half of us in this room. So it's concerning, but there's 96 of them. And each one of these properties may have an issue or concern. I mean, I'm not going to get into that. I'm actually not even getting into the RC or RB debate with respect to your time. I mean, I'm just trying to focus on the main concern that I'm hearing on the street, which is the high-density multifamily. And, that's where, I submitted, I think, 180 pages of documents. That was one of my main points. I'm hearing that we have a lot of issues with part of this rezone. But if we can just address that issue, it's going to take down a lot of concern and fear. And I've studied the issue pretty thoroughly, and I think we can actually leave the COID. I've heard some people talk about removing it, and that would take care of the high-density multifamily. However, we have created a bylaw as part of COID, which is the, Evan, what is it, 195-113, which was actually designed to prevent high-density multifamily in our IA district. That was the intent of it. It was from 2013. And the simplest fix is all we have to do is just put CBLT right next to IA. I heard Virginia speak tonight. That was great. She said, let's put it up to town meeting. Let's have, some of the concerned residents, let's have the town meeting decide this. There was, some exchange between me and the board where what was said to town meeting, what wasn't said. but let's just give them another chance where it's very, very clean. And I think CBLT could do, with that correction, could do part of its job. It's designed to be a light use case. I also heard we touched base on Class A office building, and I actually looked that up because somebody said that to me the other day. And Evan can correct me, but there's not a lot of difference between a Class A and a Class B. It had to do with amenities, location. And I think, and this is something I think that everybody needs to understand, is when you're zoning, you're not zoning for what's there. Zoning can live for 25 years, 50 years. So if we put an option for high-density multifamily, it's pretty much impossible to say, well, hey, look, it's a Class A, which means they have a cafeteria and they're near a highway. Therefore, it will never be converted. That is, that you just can't make that case, because we're talking, it won't be converted tomorrow, but what about 5 years, 10 years? And nobody, to Evan's point, nobody's got a crystal ball. Businesses may explode and everybody wants to go back to the brick and mortar of the 90s. That could happen. It's not likely. It's likely that the state will continue to increase housing any way they can. And they're, right now the state is doing that commercial conversion push, and they're making it optional. And then just like the ADU, optional today, and then they're forcing it tomorrow. So the more restrictions we do now, the better. I think that would clear up a lot of issues with just having town meeting decide that. And with respect to your time, I won't get into the other issues. But I think that's the RC, RB. There's a lot of people that want RC. There's a lot of people that want there's somebody that wants RB. We've heard that. But I think if you can address the high density multifamily, then we've accomplished something. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to add something regarding the converting in the sewer moratorium. In order for some, and you're right, like whether it's Class A, Class B, whatever, but I will tell you what will prevent it being converted. It's dollars and cents. And right now with the sewer moratorium, to put in a high density, convert any of something like that, it will cost $15 to $20 million to put in a waste treatment, because they can't connect to sewer.
Well, to touch on that point,
So financially, it wouldn't make sense. Now, you're right, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We may finally fix this sewer moratorium someday and be connected to something. And that may be in 15, 20 years. But right now, I don't necessarily, dollars and cents just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they would invest that kind of money to change what they have that's working to something that they may or may not get back.
They have rights.
And
right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Joel. They have sewer rights right now. So I did calculate that. I spoke to Evan directly on that. I emailed him and I said, what's the capacity? And we studied. I went into the square footage of 300 Apollo is 300,000 square foot office building. So they have a pretty high capacity already. And just some quick math was, 200 units they could do with their existing capacity. But to your point, we don't know the future, and we are in a sewer restriction. We have issues, but that can change. That is temporary. We don't know. They're upgrading the pump station. We heard at town meeting, right on Progress Ave. We had a study that I heard the select board discuss that. Where could we gain capacity? And they said it would come from Barica. They said we could tie into the Mass sewer, Mass water something, and it would come down that direction. So this would be the actual area that would be first enhanced. Yes.
I do need to.
No, that study is not that simple. But the main thing I wanted to say was, well, first I want to clarify. Sean had submitted something to which I had responded to Chris, and I want to make sure. And I said that feel free to post this, and I want to make sure that in Sean's subsequent reply, he made reference to this as the board's principles and so forth. Those are my views of what I think the board's principles are. Other board members may have other views. I think it would be more correct to say this is one member's views of what the board's principles were from my observation. But the one main thing I want to say is that I think don't mishear us in the sense that I do think that we are hearing that multifamily is a concern in the overlay. I mean, it's obviously currently there now, but nonetheless, the opportunity to remove it is something that is of a significant concern to residents in this, in what we're doing in the zoning change. But there's two, and I also agree with Virginia, which is one of the things that I had said, was I think that if we're going to make that change, it needs to be a separate article. However, I don't know that it's one that the planning board would actually sponsor. I'm not sure that we believe that. I will say this, though. People, please recognize the inclusion of multifamily in these overlays has been approved by the town. That means that town-wide, this is the opinion of the town, is that this is allowed. What you're essentially saying is, town, we want you to reconsider that. That I don't think it's something that can be sort of neatly tucked into this one change. This is one neighborhood in the entire town. And what you're suggesting is a town-wide change. And that, I think, is something that we want to approach more carefully, and I'm not even sure it's something that we would sponsor. The citizen could sponsor it. I think we could certainly, work and cooperate with that. But ultimately, I just don't see it coming into fall town meeting. And so then the question is, okay, well, what are our options? Are our options to leave it out and then try to put it in afterward to see? Or do we want to leave it in and then have it taken out? I think that's really where the question is right now. I don't think, again, I will yield to the chair's opinion as to what he thinks is feasible for this board to do. But if you're talking about a town-wide change to what they have already approved, I think that is a separate, significant effort to undertake than what we're undertaking here.
So just to correct you, the COID was never designed, and it was the restriction that I'm talking about was implemented at town meeting to restrict high-density multifamily. It was just the board, the 129 overlay, which was only a part of less than half of these properties were rezoning, that had the multifamily option.
Sean, the COE came in
2013.
13,
Yeah.
and then 129 was a couple years later.
Right.
They were both discussed and germinated as a unified strategy. Essentially, the strategy was and still is that IA within 129 is treated differently than the IAs everywhere else in town.
And I kind of agree with that. I think
the reason for that is that at the time, and still, the town acknowledges that 129 is unique and different and has challenges. The rest of the IA and the rest of the town basically said, we want to reserve that for industrially zoned purposes. But the town acknowledged and still acknowledges that 129 is different. Much of 129 is isolated from residential properties.
So Evan, I completely agree, and I would say we leave the high-density multifamily option in the 129 overlay, and we just carry on the restriction that it was in the COID. So that's how that's how the town meeting passed.
That's what you're saying. Just final comment for board and public. Everyone's mentioning high-density housing. 129 in COID makes no mention of high-density housing. It just says multifamily. The recent examples that the board has approved via COID are the former Radisson Hotel, converted some space to 15 residential units. So that's a good example. Could that model be applied to 300 Apollo or 150 or 250 Apollo? Absolutely. Would that be considered appropriate? Maybe, maybe not. But the challenge
So we have
difficulty-
22 properties that we're enabling a part of this rezone.
The ones that are
And
on the
they're not
opposite
on
side of
129.
the highway, that's a policy decision. That was never part of 129.
And to your point, I believe if you put any apartments or high density on 129, I don't think it would disturb anybody because they have a direct shot right to a main road. There's no single-family residential there. So I agree that if you're on Barica Road, 129, and you want to be, a high density, maybe it's possible.
It's not high density, that's a
Okay, maybe
boogeyman.
medium density, but if you're at
It's a
300
boogeyman.
Apollo.
I mean, the planning board via a special permit has public hearing, has resident input. It may not approve a high density, but
we also have the state, trying to take away your lever at the same time. But I agree with you. I'm saying that I don't have an issue with the board continuing the high density or the apartment or housing. All of these properties, the 96, after we rezone, are not part of the board overlay, the 120. So whatever we do with that doesn't impact our rezoning.
Yeah, it's a separate
So the
matter.
COID is which currently restricts IA. So if you're part of the COID today and you're IA, like some of the properties here we're discussing, you have no pathway. So I'm not going to name them. I can if you want.
It's an option. So if
you're at 101 River Neck Road.
If you're on the opposite side of Route 3, in your zone CB light, if you abut a CB light property, you may prefer housing over a commercial or light industrial use.
And that housing may not, it may be something that's like the duplexes on Turnpike here that went in, those, they were selling for $800,000.
Right.
Right, mean, that may be, again, and,
I think if the
and
board.
so on the other side of Route 3, those properties that you mentioned that you didn't want us to change to CB Light, but if they sold and put in duplexes, to be quite honest, if I butted them, I wouldn't necessarily mind that. Would I mind an apartment building that had 50 units? Yeah. But do I mind, 8 duplexes that are worth more than my houses and bring up my value? No, not necessarily. So again, you just because it's, I think you're going to the extreme, and we haven't had a history of that, and you have to be careful of.
I'm just saying, COID restricts it now in IA. CBLT was created a year ago. 195-113 wasn't even, and nobody looked at it. Nobody knew about it. Now we know about it. I just want to.
We knew about that.
Okay. And to your point of the duplexes, I mean, the CBLT is not the tool for duplexes. We know that. We have RC. So if somebody wanted to put duplexes on 101 River Neck, I wouldn't zone it light commercial industrial. That wasn't what its intention was.
It provides flexibility. Not just flexibility for the owner developer, but more importantly for the planning board and the neighborhood.
I mean, for instance,
the neighborhood may say that on former Mercury sites or 195 River Neck Road, that they prefer multifamily over anything that's being proposed. CB Light allows that opportunity to be discussed. So it's a balancing act. But without a threat of a use that nobody wants, such as an outdoor contractor yard or a distribution facility, nobody then says, well, I'd really prefer residential. So this creates options for the town, meaning the board and the neighborhood to consider as well.
Sean,
Some developers just simply want to come to the town and say, what would you like to see? Because I don't want to get into a fight. And in some cases, with the CB Light, the board and the neighborhood are able to provide guidance and input to a potential investor.
Right. I mean, if you had that site and you wanted to enable the feature, we could make it part of the 129 overlay. But
Sean, I need to cut you off. We're getting really late. Right. I do want to reiterate, the SEAD overlay, as Evan pointed out, is not high density. It allows less than 4 units by right, and anything over 5 units by special permit only. It also has 3-story max. So you will not get significant high-density housing on a
Have
SAYOD
you
overlay.
studied the models to check, how many houses we can support under that? With a property like 300 Apollo, it's 26 acres.
Again, 300 Apollo, if you keep going back to
Former
300
Mercury
Apollo,
site, that's,
if you keep going back to 300 Apollo, I will keep reiterating that what you are afraid of Apollo becoming is what is allowed today in the current zoning. If you're looking at other properties, those are smaller properties that will not hold high-density housing. If you're looking at 300, you keep going back and forth.
so
If you're
I
looking
believe
at-
part of the
Sean,
rezoning.
stop, please. If you're looking at 300, I will keep reiterating that density that you're afraid of is allowed today.
But we're removing it. And we're also changing the use case. And from my studies, which I know you haven't done,
And that's my point.
Yeah.
We're removing that high density and putting in multifamily allowed at a lower density. Same thing in the other properties.
lower density meaning 3 stories, is that?
No higher than 3 stories.
Okay.
Anything over 5 units by special
But
permit.
you're not limiting the size of the building,
Yes, the size of the building
so,
is limited by lot coverage.
right, so under 26.5 acres, we could have, just roughly, you could have 1,000 apartments, 3-story.
The other thing I want to point out is one of the SAYOD changes that we made is the building footprint.
I've seen it, yes.
That used to allow a change in the building footprint if it's a change in use.
Right.
Now, that change in footprint is not allowed by right.
Right.
So
Okay.
again, the changes we implemented at the last town meeting under SAYOD
Right.
are more restrictive.
So, just to reiterate, and to recap, I'm going to go, but the CBLT, from my understanding at town meeting, was created as a light commercial industrial use. It was not created as a vehicle for housing. So, if it sounds like the board is saying, well, hey, look, we kind of want to keep this as a vehicle for housing. The neighborhood doesn't. I hope that you hear the neighborhood. There are a lot of different concerns. This is the loudest one that I think is viewed upon all of the neighborhood, regardless if they want RB or RC.
Sean, I need to cut you off. Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay.
Hold on.
I just want to make a quick point. So it was just mentioned that if houses are constructed in the Apollo area, they will be duplexes and it's not a big problem. So with the same line of thought, they're not going to be high density like big houses. It will be duplexes, and so I just want to make sure that we apply the same logic to Monmouth Street and you
So,
grant us the RC.
To that point,
Mhm.
while those two places are in close proximity, the issue that I have with duplexes and larger units on Monmouth is the access road. The access road on Monmouth cannot support the large volume that RC would allow. It's really about the road and not the properties. Apollo has Apollo Drive. It's a very different outlet than Monmouth Street and McFarland. So that is the issue with those two properties. That's why
Well,
the difference.
Understood.
That's
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to add, there's another consideration in that, and that is that with RC, you are adding units to the inventory, which then which is a point we made before, which is then, increases the risk of falling under the 10%.
Yeah.
If you add housing into the Apollo area, that triggers the inclusionary bylaw, and that means that they are required to provide 25% affordable. So that is the difference between housing that goes into the Apollo area or any of the CBLT, let's say, out overlay areas versus the risk of if it's zoned RC, then getting duplexes. And this would be a great opportunity to say, yes, when I said in that previous meeting that it was allowed as right, and then it was corrected by Evan, and that's because, I made the mistake of talking when Evan wasn't there. But nonetheless, Evan's correction is that it would require a special permit if you are undersized. But I was on the ZBA for well over a decade. I can tell you that somebody comes in with a special permit for wanting to produce duplexes with an undersized lot. First of all, you are not violating the intent of the zone by going duplex, because that's allowed by, it's allowed. So what it becomes is more dimensional. Are you actually, are you building up right up next to your neighbor? Or are you increasing the density of the far too much or whatever? But I mean, in any calculation based on what was provided earlier in Sean's analysis, either those FAR numbers are accurate, in which case there's plenty of room to use to create duplexes, or the FARs are not accurate, much smaller, in which case you have room to expand them. So again, I know that there's been criticism that somehow it's not likely that, or it's a narrowed, more constrained possibility. I can tell you that it is significant enough of a likelihood that this board should take it seriously, that allowing the possibility of duplexes endangers the town of going over the limit, and if it goes over the limit, it's not just Monmouth that's affected, it's not just McFarland, it's not just River Neck Road, it's the entire town.
Okay. Well, thank you for the point on the access road. I'll consider it. And I didn't understand everything that you said, but I'll research about it. Thank you. Yeah.
And please, again, email us.
Yep.
Any of us, we're happy to sit down with you and kind of go through all of it in our thought process and why we've done it and what we're trying to do.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. So at this point, I will make the corrections on those articles that we have discussed. I would ask that the board think about Virginia's recommendation. We can discuss it first thing in the next meeting about whether we want to make changes to the SAOD overlay, either exclude River Neck area. I think the options are exclude all of CBLT, exclude River Neck, and how we would do that. I don't want to discuss it tonight. Think about it. Think about pros and cons. Think about how we would do it, when we would do it, and then we'll have that discussion first in that line item at the next public hearing. And then we'll discuss that as a board, and then we'll open it up for public comment again. Okay?
And please come back.
So at this point, I would take a motion to continue this public hearing.
I move we continue this public hearing to the next.
22nd.
We're going to
22nd.
What's the date on
August
that?
22nd.
August 22nd.
22nd?
Is it 22nd?
No,
No.
the 21st is Friday, so.
Sorry.
26th.
26th.
26th, okay.
Listen, I'm still on
Motion by
vacation.
Mike.
Seconded.
Second by Marcy, and we need to do a roll call.
Aye.
Mike is an aye. John?
Aye.
Anita? Marcy? Joel?
Aye.
Deirdre?
Aye.
And I am an aye. We are continued. We don't have any more agenda items, so at this point, I'll
Motion,
take a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
adjourn?
Motion by Anita, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Aye.